One Piece: The Legend of Creation, Chapter 541-560. 541 Ujawali can use the mirror flower water moon. Since you know, why didn't you crack it, instead? Lu Chengkong understood a part, but he still didn't understand, but he was interrupted by Ujawali before he finished speaking. As I said, I don't know the all-knowing and almighty God. I just felt that the 5 senses of my soul were covered with a layer of energy. I didn't know it was hypnotic energy at that time, so I wanted to study it, and either this energy continues to exist, but if Aizen wants to use Kyoka Suzuki against me, attack me and fight me, the energy on my soul's 5 senses will then operate to erode the 5 senses of my soul, and my 5 senses will be affected by the blue dye, and I will be the first to notice it. If that happens, I will be able to crack the hypnotic energy of Kyoka Shueyu at the click of a finger, and because this energy and Zanpakuto Kyoka Shueyu figured out and have a link, and Kyoka Shueyu is also a part of Aizen's soul. So once Aizen fights with me, if I destroy this energy, Aizen will be instantly backfired several times. The backlash of the soul is not as simple as an ordinary injury. He can use 50% of his combat power when he is backlashed. It's already very good. When I want to kill him, it's just a matter of waving my hands. Ujawali said quietly, but her words made Luanju feel a chill in her heart. Even if Lu Chengkong hadn't told her, she could feel the unusualness of Ujawali with her strength and perception. She is not an idiot, on the contrary, she is very intelligent and careful. From the solemnity in Lu Chengkong's eyes when he looked at Mao Jihuali, she could vaguely guess that Mao Jihuali was not simple. So when Aizen used Jinghua Shueyu to cheat death, you already felt the energy of your 5 senses at work. Lu Chengkong has roughly understood the end of the whole thing, but he still asked the last one question. Yes, sometimes you can't just rely on your 5 senses when fighting. I believe what my heart sees more than what I see with my eyes. At that time, I didn't know the general function of this energy. Later at the same time Aizen used Kyoka Suzuki, his death also followed, I guessed a little. Therefore, after understanding the actual function of this energy, I seemed to be investigating whether this was really Aizen, but in fact I was studying this energy. Later, I felt that it was a little worse, so I took Youngin to find Aizen. Ran, in order to fully understand the mirror, let my research have a perfect ending. So I cooperated with Aizen and pretended to be surprised, thinking that I had mastered everything, and then told the secret of Jinghua Shueyu. Then I don't need to care about what Aizen wants to do. After all, I'm just a 4th team. It was at that time that I completely understood all the secrets of Jinghua Shueyu. By the way, since you asked, I will also show you my research results. After Ujawali finished speaking, she actually pulled out the Zanpakuto, which surprised Luanju and Lu Chengkong. She said something that almost made Lu Chengkong scream. Break it, Jinghua Shueyu. A faintly imperceptible light flashed, and Lu Chengkong and Luanju had already changed their faces, especially Lu Chengkong, whose eyes were wide open. Impossible, Ujawali could actually use Jinghua Shueyu's ability. The world is so messed up. Are you surprised? Aizen believes too much in his Zanpakuto. Every Zanpakuto has its own strengths and weaknesses. The so-called complete hypnosis, a perfect Zanpakuto simply cannot exist. The shortcomings were all made up for by Shinigami himself through acquired efforts, but he did not do so. He stubbornly believed that his Zanpakuto was perfect. In fact, Kyoka Shueyu can control the 5 senses. In addition to the condition of seeing the liberation of Kyoka Shueyu, there is also the fact that Aizen's own strength cannot be much weaker than the person being hypnotized. Otherwise, his use of Kyoka Shueyu in battle is a kind of cumbersome. Dominating the 5 senses requires enough energy to influence the 5 senses of the soul. Have you ever seen Aizen use Kyoka Suzuki in a head-to-head fight against someone who is much stronger than him? No, when facing Captain Yamamoto, he chose to leave. If his Kyoka Shueyu was as perfect as he said, he could have shot the hypnotized Captain Yamamoto and killed him directly. Need to let go of a big enemy. In fact, he knew this in his heart, but he was reluctant to admit it. Sometimes, the smarter people are a little stubborn, and they will subconsciously ignore this. To be precise, they are unwilling to believe in their own shortcomings. Kyoka Suzuki is his most proud ability. How could he be willing to believe that this Zanpakuto, which is perfect in his opinion, has imperfections? Ujawali shook his head and released the complete hypnosis of Lu Chengkong and Matsumoto Ranju. You haven't told me how you can use Jinghua Shuiyu's ability. At this moment, Lu Chengkong only felt that Ujawali was even more mysterious. The ability to use other people's Zanpakuto was too scary. Pakuto is a part of Shinigami's soul. Even if it is possible to have two identical Zanpakuto, it is absolutely impossible that a Shinigami who already has his own Zanpakuto abilities can use the Zanpakuto abilities of other Shinigami with different abilities. It did. It's very simple. Use the energy that Aizen left on the 5 senses of my soul and then use a special method to hypnotize others, including Aizen himself. Aizen controls the energy generated by Jinghua Shuiyu to dominate other people's 5 senses. In the final analysis, Aizen has the ability to control the energy of the mirror, so that it can control the 5 senses of others. So does it mean that I can also control the energy of the mirror like Aizen, and I can also use the mirror? What? This is the theme of my research plan. Otherwise, why would I waste so much time studying Kyoka Suigetsu? In general, in a certain respect, Kyoka Suigetsu is as perfect as Aizen said, but there are also many limitations. The more perfect and powerful his abilities are, the more places he can limit. Don't be fooled by the seemingly powerful and perfect Zanpakuto. Ujawali said with a chuckle, completely unaware of the impact his actions had on Lu Chengkong and Matsumoto Ranju. Okay, I won't talk to you first, I'll go and treat Tauzi first, but she was badly hurt by Aizen, and she was the one who was hypnotized the most. As long as her hypnosis is resolved, Aizen will stay in her heart. The shadow under her will also disappear quickly with the passage of time and her own perseverance. After all, Aizen can have such a great influence on her, in addition to what he did intentionally on weekdays, that is, through the hypnosis of Kyoka Suzui, the hypnosis is deepened. Because of this external force, the reason why Hinamori Dao is so dependent on Aizen is a big reason. It is because of Jinghua Shuiyu's hypnosis. After the solution, the external force of hypnosis disappeared. Maybe she will be affected by the emotions of the past for a period of time and there will be a downturn for a while, but without the influence of hypnosis, Hina Moritao, who has regained her complete sanity, will soon wake up completely, and will no longer be the same as before. There will be no situation where Hitsugaya Tushiro is wielding his sword. 542 Intimidating Little Peaches. Wait, Lu Chengkong suddenly stopped Maojawali, and seeing Mao Zihua's doubtful gaze, Lu Chengkong immediately said, "Let me try it." Okay. Maojawali nodded without any hesitation, moved the lotus step slightly, and gave up the position to Lu Chengkong. Devil heart. Lu Chengkong whispered in his heart, and a pair of eyes changed quietly. The pair of heart-pounding demon eyes appeared in an instant, and the originally dead eyes were empty and dull, and the young Sentao suddenly raised his head and looked at it. A pair of eyes she will never forget. Hina Sentao's eyes shrank rapidly, staring blankly at the pair of magic eyes in front of her. She only felt that all the sights in front of her had disappeared, and the only thing left was a pair of terrifying eyes carved into her heart and lungs. After a moment of sluggishness, she unable to suppress the fear in her heart any longer, she screamed in horror, and at the same time, she began to revive her life, who was dead and without a trace of life and death. Your method is really extreme, but the effect is really fast enough. If you make a person whose heart is no greater than the depth of his heart, if he is afraid of death, he will quickly regain his anger, and it will no longer be dead. Maojawali couldn't help but be surprised. It's not that she hadn't seen Lu Chengkong's magic eye, but she just didn't expect Lu Chengkong to use such extreme methods on Hina Sentao. You were shot by Aizen's Jinghua Shuiyu, and you're very desperate to be stabbed by Aizen, right? You can't bear so much pain. I think your best friend Xiaobai felt more painful when you slashed at him, and now he has just been discharged from the hospital. It won't be long. Lu Chengkong Hihi Isho, when he and Yazumaru Lisa went to the movies, Eyes Naneo always jumped out to destroy them, but Lu Qingkong glared at her with his magic eyes, and he was still very timid at that time. Eyes Naneo fainted from fright, but he didn't expect the magic eye to have such an effect. I don't have much time to waste on you. If you can't recover, I will stay with you every day, looking into my eyes every second until you overcome the hypnosis. That's right, he just wanted to take advantage of Hina Moridao's fear of the devil's eye and rely on his own perseverance to overcome the hypnosis of the mirror. If Aizen interferes here, it is impossible to overcome even with Weissen Dao's perseverance and strength, but now Aizen is still squatting somewhere in the virtual circle to heal. Where is the opportunity to interfere with Hina Moritao? Although Ujawali can control the energy of Kyokushueyu, of course, it can easily dissolve the energy of Kyokushueyu on the 5 senses of Hina Sendao's soul, but doing so is a bit of a cure. If you face Aizen again in the future, as long as Aizen thinks about it, Hinata will fall into hypnosis again, and it is likely to have an indelible psychological shadow, even serious enough to form a demon. So he has to use Hinamatsu's fear of the devil's eye to force him to accept the reality, so as to adapt to. In the end, it will take a long or short process to overcome it. It all depends on Hina Moritao's own perseverance. No, I don't come here, I don't want to look at another pair of eyes. At this time, there was only pure fear in Wei Sendao's heart, the fear that went deep into the soul. Where would there be time and leisure to grieve, to think in the past? Thinking about the blue dye, thinking about the hypnosis of Jinghua Shuiyu, there was only one thought left in her mind, that is, these eyes disappear quickly. As long as these eyes disappear, she is willing to do anything. It seems that things are a little troublesome. It is very likely that Xin Dao will overcome the hypnosis of Kyoka Shuiyu and regain her strength. It is not impossible that she will no longer be afraid of Kyoka Shuiyu in the future, but she has fallen into another inner demon. Resistance may be infinitely close to zero. Quote. Lu Qingkong felt as if he was doing something bad with good intentions. Although he achieved the expected goal, it seemed that he had also transformed Xin Dao from being controlled by Aizen's Kyoka Shuiyu to being controlled by his own magic eye. But that's fine. Anyway, I don't have so much time and I'm not so interested in using the magic eye to scare the young Moritao. It's not a big deal, it's just a little bit of a fly in the ointment. As long as you forget about Aizen, stand up, overcome your inner demons, face your heart, and accept the reality, then these eyes will leave and disappear. Can you do it? Lu Qingkong said word by word, in order to give Hina Sendao increase the pressure, and it was the kind of gathering magic energy into the magic eye, which made the deterrent power of the magic eye even greater. Aizen, no, don't come here, I promise you, leave quickly. Hinamori Dao's face showed a hint of struggle and hesitation, but she collapsed under the eyes of terrifying demon eyes, and immediately shouted. Very good, Lu Qingkong thought with a thought, the devil's eyes, devil's heart, and devil's energy disappeared, returning to his usual approachable appearance. The speed of change made Mao Zhawali stunned. Young Sentao gasped hard, her face was pale, her face was covered in cold sweat. She looked at Lu Qingkong in horror. Obviously Lu Qingkong's figure had been deeply engraved in her heart, of course it made her terrified of the kind. If you can't fully recover when we see you next time, then you should be prepared to live with this pair of eyes every day. Lu Qingkong said that he even glared deliberately, scaring the young Sentao like a rabbit. Jumping back, the little head kept lit like a chicken pecking at rice. The little girl is frightened, but I think this young Sendao is also very cute. You have left such a bad impression in people's hearts. Are you afraid that you won't be able to do it when you want to chase people in the future? Matsumoto Ranju came over angrily glancing at Lu Qingkong. He said with a charming smile. Che, if I want to hit her, I won't be able to do it. Lu Qingkong said very stinky, but he said it was not unreasonable. Now the influence of the magic eye is more than the influence of Jinghua Shuiyu. To be huge. As long as he wants to, he can use the magic eye to scare the young Sendao into a mental breakdown. It is possible to directly dedicate himself. Of course, the reason why Lu Qingkong's magical eye has such great power is that the young Sendao has been dyed by Ai and his Jinghua Shuiyu. The defense line of the mind was tortured all over the body, and of course Lu Chengkong, the latecomer, succeeded in the invasion without much effort. Really, you frightened Xiao Taozi like this, but gave me these hands and tails. Ujawali said with dissatisfaction, but her smile has not changed in the slightest, and it still makes people feel like a spring breeze, as if she is the embodiment of great compassion and compassion. At least seeing the figure of Azuki Hana, the trembling young Sendao, who was like a frightened rabbit, calmed down slowly, and even took the initiative to lean towards Uzohana's body, as if Uzohana was her in the sea. The only one who can be rescued is like a lonely boat. 543 fighting in a row. It's almost the same. Without the original rondo, Carrier God lost the ability to absorb spiritual suns. If Kuchiki Kyukawa and others did not take action, Ichigo Kurosaki, Komamura Zojin, Hitsugaya and others would defeating this fiasco is in his own hands, so it is not difficult for Carrier God, who is much stronger than the original work under the crazy absorption of blood essence. But it's a bit difficult to kill him. Even in a heads-up situation, it's easy to be overturned by Carrier God in a long-term Zango. Now there's a good show to watch. The most dreaded thing about Bavint is not their strength. The increase in speed is not what they call a puppet, but if you can't completely kill him with one blow, he has the ability to continuously absorb the spirits. Lu Chengkong felt the spiritual pressure of Korea God. Back then, he still beat Korea God to the point of death. If Deng didn't need him to relieve his boredom, he would have killed him, and now he is just letting him play the role. It's time to relieve the boredom, but there is one more effect, that is, making sandbags for the chrysanthemum. The two Shinigami captains, Tushiro and Kimura Zojin, this Reiatsu is like a light bulb, not to mention Ichigo Kurosaki, the rest are Renji Asanjing, Yuki Yasugawa, and these guys. Hey, there's a show to watch. Lu Chengkong smiled, a gust of breeze blew, and the figures of him and Matsumoto Ranju had disappeared, apparently rushing towards the Moro execution ground that was destroyed before. Is this guy a monster? I've already beaten him to the point where he can't move. Why is he alive again in a blink of an eye? Kurosaki Ichigo was panting heavily, and he was injured in many places. Originally, Carrier God was not weaker than him at all, and even slightly stronger than him. If Ichigo bursts out, he can still kill Carrier God who is stronger than himself. But the problem is that Carrier God is an existence that is almost immortal. Unless you can beat him into powder with one blow, otherwise, if you wait for it to work, one will grow and one will grow, and Kurosaki Ichigo will definitely lose. Just like the battle between the old man Yamamoto and Aizen in the original book, the old man Yamamoto clearly had the strength to defeat Aizen, but he couldn't kill Aizen in the end, and Aizen, who has the power of collapsing jade, is not afraid of consumption at all. Old man Yamamoto consumes too much and will be defeated instead. As I said, with the power of the Pure World chapter, plus being in the Soul realm, it is impossible to kill me. As long as the Soul realm is not destroyed, I will not die. Even if I can't destroy Soul world this time, as long as I don't lack time, if I hide in this world and continue to absorb blood essence, I will one day surpass Soul world and destroy Soul world. Not at all impossible. Carrier God stood there very calmly. Those red and dangerous eyes looked at Kurosaki Ichigo and said confidently. Looks like we're going to make a move. Komamura Zojin on the side is also a god of death with his own pride. If it is not necessary, he will never join forces to besiege an enemy, but now it is obvious that he can't make a move. This Bavint never let him escape. Let me do it, Bankai, the great Gurren Bingren pill. Hitsugaya Tushiro knew that Shikai could not be killed alone, so when he shot Bankai, he turned into a giant frost dragon, and 12 lotus flowers appeared behind him. With an extremely cold air, he stabbed at Carrier God. Has the Soul Society really degenerated now? How could a little devil be the captain? Carrier God said contemptuously, but his eyes were serious. Because he heard this kid say the word Bankai. He has fought many times with the Soul Society. He knows very well that the death god who knows Bankai will not be weak no matter how weak, but strategically, he must despise the enemy. he still knows how to pay attention to the enemy tactically. Long Zunjia. In the battle with Lu Chengkong more than 60 years ago, he already knew how big the gap between himself and the real peak death god captain was. He has been training hard for more than 60 years, but it is a pity that he faced Aizen, and he is still young after all, and his growth potential is extremely huge. Bankai is not a real complete version yet. As the strongest Zanpakuto of the ice and snow type, how could it have only such a little power? Looking at the power of the strongest Zanpakuto of the fire type, it can be seen that as long as it has the word strongest, the Zanpakuto are not weak, on the contrary strong perverts. After all, will the strongest Zanpakuto in each series be inferior? It's just that Hitsugaya's body is still small now, and he hasn't grown up completely. He can't bear the spiritual pressure and ability of the domineering Bing Lunwan. Plus he was hypnotized by Aizen. It's normal to be defeated, but in defeat. After giving Aizen, not only did he not get discouraged, but he practiced more attentively. In his opinion, Aizen has been doing so much longer than me as a god of death. It is normal for me to be stronger than myself. As long as I persevere, I will reach the level of Aizen sooner or later. I have to say that Hitsugaya Tushiro is indeed more mature and rational than the original. Misha, summon the thunder and lightning from the sky. Feeling a cold crisis looming over him, Carrier God immediately abandoned his current opponent, Ichigo Kurosaki. Anyway, Ichigo Kurosaki fought with him for so long, consuming almost at the limit. It is supported by a toughness, which is not enough for oneself. Thunderbolts are frozen, Hitsugaya Toshiro shouted, and the Zanpakuto with ice block in his hand stabbed directly at Raiden. He was stunned. Raiden was actually frozen directly. It seems that he lost to Raiden a few months ago. After Aizen is not without harvest, there is a kind of progress of breaking and standing, and the strength will go further. As expected of Chun Shui's evaluation of a genius who can be stronger than him in just over 100 years, the speed of progress is fast. If he loses to Aizen's hands, he won't have a shadow in his heart, but he will be more motivated to become stronger. Komamura Zojun admitted many years ago that this kid is a real captain, and now seeing Toshiro looks small, but his mind is very mature and firm, and he has a little admiration. Condensation. Carrier God's expression changed slightly, the ability to freeze was beyond his expectations, and even his most proud thunderbolt was frozen in ice, which should not be underestimated. The wind ball separated the erosion of the ice block, and at the same time controlled the wind and pulled the distance from Hitsugaya Toshiro. Thunderbolt. With a wave of Carrier God's right hand, the yellow lightning flashed away at an extremely fast speed. Unfortunately, Hitsugaya Toshiro's pair of wings made of ice and snow joined together to block the lightning of Carrier God. At the same time, Kurosaki Ichigo also expended his last strength and released the final blow of the crescent moon. 544 Playing with the wind. You're still far. Crescent moon crimson. Kurosaki Ichigo waved and poured the rest of his spiritual pressure into the heavenly lock Zanyu. A thick black crescent moon swept over directly, and the earth was torn apart directly and bombarded. On the body of Carrier God, there were wounds that could be seen deep in the bones. After all, it was Kurosaki Ichigo's last full-strength blow, and of course its power would not be weak, but unfortunately, it was useless to kill him with a single blow. It's a pity, if you hit a god of death or a virtual body with the same strength as me, you can severely injure them and lose their combat effectiveness, but I said that I have an immortality in the soul world. Strength, he absorbed the spiritual child faster, and the injury on his body healed in a blink of an eye. It's really troublesome. This undead body must be killed by a ghost with super salty power in an instant. I knew that I would call the master of the ghosts to hold Lingtiajai. Knows that his shot is useless. Although his strength is great, he can't kill Carrier God all at once. After all, his Bankai is a pure physical attack. Unlike Kurosaki Ichigo, Tionsuo Zanyu, there is also a trick similar to the Ghost Way, the Crescent Moon Sky. No way. Maybe I can kill him instantly with the kind of stunt I can't master now, but I'm also sure that I can use it successfully. It's really troublesome. Hitsugaya Tushiro had already roughly felt the nuclear limit that his attack could reach at the moment of the attack just now. If it is to use Tianxiang Lingalan, it can be killed. The problem is that he does not have the confidence to control this most basic and most powerful ability. If the arrogant Hingrenwan can't control it, it is likely to be backlashed. It seems that you are really useless. I thought I didn't have to shoot, but now it looks like I've lost again. A beautiful voice that made one's whole body go soft suddenly sounded in the quiet execution ground of True Central, and Karyashin's eyes immediately rang out. Looking over, he shrank for a moment. He saw the male death god who played him with applause back then. Isn't he a traitor? How come here? Lu Chengkong, Matsumoto Ranju. Komamura Zojun said in a deep voice. He didn't expect these two people to come, but he was relieved. No matter what, as long as the two of them are willing to shoot, then this Bawant will be able to do it. Must die. It's not that he has no spine in the left formation of Komamura, but that he has seen the horror of the battle between Lu Chengkong and Old Man Yamamoto. The Battle of the Old Man is the real classic. The terrifying Zanpakuto and the terrifying Reiatsu are constantly colliding. Whether it is visual effects or the destructive power of the affected area, the battle between the two of them is more attractive. Although the strength of Kuchiki Jinling is comparable to that of Old Man Yamamoto, Old Man Yamamoto's ultra-wide range is the strongest. The flame-type Zanpakuto was more attractive than him. Hey, because you and my husband lost the bet again. Matsumoto Ranju said angrily. When she came just now, she made a bet with Lu Chengkong, saying that so many captains should be able to clean up Bawant, and Matsumoto Ranju just judging by the strength of the Reiatsu. How could one know about Bavant's ability to absorb Reiki, but of course she lost. But you may really be a very good sandbag. Matsumoto Ranju suddenly walked over to carry a god step by step. The breasts on her chest trembled slightly with each step she stepped out, leading one after another. Wonderful milk waves. However, apart from Lu Chengkong, no one dared to keep their eyes on her, because Matsumoto Ranju's breathtaking spiritual pressure has slowly spread out, and the air in the sky seems to be unbearable. The Reiatsu who lived in Matsumoto Ranju became very depressed. Okay, so strong. Ichigo Kurosaki was supported by Chadu Taihu. His eyes widened in surprise, and he said incredulously, he didn't expect this tall, plump, scary blonde royal sister dairy cow girl to be so terrifying strength. The current spiritual pressure of Matsumoto Ranju is no weaker than that of the old Yamamoto who fought against Lu Chengkong a few months ago, and even worse. Don't get me wrong, although Matsumoto Ranju has broken the limit for a few months, her aptitude is also high. It's scary, but it's impossible to catch up to the level of Old Man Yamamoto in just a few months. But in the past few months, Lu Chengkong took her, Bachinliu, Saifeng Yuan Yei, and Nelly Lu several women to the boundary, and everyone knew the time of the boundary and the outside world. The ratio is 2000 to 1. It seems like a short period of time has passed outside, but Lu Chengkong and others have passed a period of time inside. Duanji is a very good practice space. Lu Chengkong didn't remember it before, but after thinking about it, he immediately took Matsumoto Ranju and others to Duanji to practice for a period of time. After all, after they broke the limit, the speed of their strength improvement was very fast. What was missing was time, and the most important thing in Broken Realm was time, so after staying in Broken Realm for a while, Lu Chengkong and his party had all the strengths. Qualitative ascension. It's unfathomable, only the captain, Your Excellency, could give me this feeling, but now this woman named Matsumoto Ranju actually brings me this kind of pressure. No, she is stronger than the captain. How is it possible? What is Lu Chengkong? Who is it, and why are the women around you stronger than the other? Komamura Zojin's face was very solemn, and the strength of Matsumoto Ranju far exceeded her expectations. Don't say I won't give you a chance, I'll let you make 3 moves. Matsumoto Ranju raised his head, blonde hair draped over his shoulders, looking like a blonde Valkyrie on the battlefield, majestic and heroic. Wind. Of course, Carrier God also felt the power of Matsumoto Ranju, and did not dare to have any reservations. He even stimulated the power of the Pure World chapter to the limit, and a hurricane flew towards Matsumoto Ranju. It's a pity that this powerful hurricane actually dissipated invisibly when it was about a meter in front of Matsumoto Ranju, leaving everyone present except Lu Chengkong puzzled. Is your puppet the wind? Playing with the wind in front of me? Are you still far behind? It's like a classmate playing an axe. Matsumoto Ranju shook his head and said amusingly, his voice full of mockery. You don't have to worry, I'll keep my word, and there are 2 more tricks. Impossible, how could it dissipate suddenly? At that moment my Meisha lost control of that hurricane. Impossible, the ubiquitous wind is my magic weapon, I don't believe it. Carrier God gritted his teeth, and if he didn't believe it, he sent out a more powerful hurricane. Unfortunately, it was the same as before, and it dissipated immediately after approaching Matsumoto Ranju about 1 meter. 545 Ranju Real Shikai. You can't teach a child. Matsumoto Ranju imitated Lu Chengkong, shaking his head and said, watching Lu Chengkong burst into laughter. Facing the mature and sexy, hot and plump Matsumoto Ranju occasionally showed a little girl-like cute Lu Chengkong. It's also heartwarming to see. Still, it was also very funny. Thunderbolt. Carrier God, who knew that the wind was useless, was no less than 2 arms were abolished. His biggest weapon, besides absorbing the spirit and the pure world seal, was the power of his puppet. Now the power of the puppet it is almost equivalent to useless, how can the loss be not big for him? Is it thunder and lightning? I seem to be able to do this too. Matsumoto Ranju tilted his head, stretched out his jade hand and tapped a finger, and a sharp rubbing sound exploded from the air. Because the thick electric snake rippling out in the air with the sound of Matsumoto Ranju's finger, it directly smashed the thunder and lightning of Carrier God. Impossible. You can manipulate the wind, like me, using the wind to generate high-voltage static electricity under the friction of the atmosphere. Carrier God's eyes almost popped out. He didn't expect that there is a god of death with the same ability as himself. No, it should be more than he was much more advanced, because he didn't see this death god liberate Zanpakuto at all. Wrong, it's not like you. How can the light of Firefly compete with how you? Matsumoto Ranju said disdainfully, as if comparing Carrier God's ability to himself was an insult. What? Carrier God's face was terribly ugly. After all, if someone devalues your most proud ability, but the other party does have the same ability that you have more than you, this feeling is really better than eating. Stool is also uncomfortable. It's hard to accept. It's uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but I really don't need to take your feelings into account, because I'm just stating a fact, you know. You're annoying me a bit, and my husband says you're a good person. But I don't know what to do, because I'm afraid I'll kill you if I accidentally push too hard. Matsumoto Ranju seems to be stating a fact, but her words are unacceptable, but she doesn't care at all. There is always only one person who can make her take care of, that is Lu Chengkong, the others are life or death. She didn't care at all. As for Ichimaru Jin, a stubborn relative and friend who wanted to avenge herself. As long as he is not an enemy of Lu Chengkong, Ichimaru Jin will always be her relative and friend in this world, Matsumoto Ranju. After all, he always regards Ichimaru Jin as his brother, and Ichimaru Jin also simply regards him as a relative. Sister to see. Because of Lu Chengkong, the 2 of them didn't develop to the level of the original book at all. They were just friends and relatives who grew up together, and were even taken by Lu Chengkong's side early on, let alone the point of the original book. Even if it was them, the friendship between them was not as deep as I imagined. After all, the time they spent together was too little, much less than the original book, and they were barely considered to have been with Lu Chengkong when they were young. Ichimaru Yin was just her best friend. At most just being a big brother is the same as the relationship between Kunenbai, Lisa Yahomaru, and Mako Hirako of the Masked Legion. They are all pure friendship and family affection. However, Matsumoto Ranju is still very grateful to Ichimaru Jin. She is not a person who forgets her roots. If it wasn't for the food she gave her when she was a child, she might not have survived. She doesn't care if she dies. What she cares about is if she dies. I can't get to know this man who made me love so hard. So as long as Ichimaru-jin is not an enemy of Liu Changkong, then Ichimaru-jin is Matsumoto Ranju's benefactor, friend, and relative. She will definitely save Ichimaru-jin's life, let him live well, and repay him to the best of her ability. The life-saving grace when I was a child, and the kindness that allowed me to have Liu Changkong as a husband. If you can do it, try it. Kurayagami was already resigned at this time, but when he heard Matsumoto's words, he laughed angrily. He admitted that his strength was not as good as the woman in front of him. But if he wants to kill him, who has an immortal body in the soul realm, Carrier God definitely doesn't believe it. Don't believe it. Look at this. Matsumoto Ranju stretched out a jade finger, and a jagged gray-white sphere suddenly condensed on the jade finger. The high concentration of violence is very scary, and this virtual flash it was obviously injected by Matsumoto Ranju into the aura of his own Zanpakuto ability, which made Wang Shu's flash contain an aura of wind, giving people a feeling of nowhere to be found, illusory but unable to dodge. That's Shu flash. No, Wang Shu's flash. Shinigami actually has a Wang Shu flash that can only be mastered by 10 blades. The knowledgeable Komamura Zojin was taken aback and watched as Matsumoto Ranju pointed to him. The jagged gray-white sphere on the top of it exclaimed loudly. Is it necessary to be so surprised? This Wang Shu's flash, I think it is enough to knock you to pieces. You can't leave anything behind. It's a pity that you didn't have the blessing to die under Wang Shu's flash. Matsumoto Ranju continued her maddening words, as if she felt very sorry that Carrier God couldn't die under the flash of his own Wang Shu, as if it was his blessing. Let's go. Carrier God rose directly into the sky. He was not afraid of death, but he did not want to die in vain. In the face of this level of death god, he had no resistance at all. Saroi Tei's chance. Did I say let you go? Matsumoto Ranju's eyes narrowed. The invisible wind actually materialized and became visible to the naked eye, forming a cage to block the soaring Carrier God. No matter how he punched, kicks are useless, and what makes Carrier God desperate is that he finds that his proud doll, Meisha, can't be used, and he can't control the wind. Although you don't have the blessing to die under the light of my Wang Shu, but you have the blessing to see my Shikai, thank my husband well before you die. If it wasn't for him to let me use Shikai, just rely on it. Even if you die 100 times, you won't have the qualification to see my Zanpakuto liberate 10,000 times. Matsumoto Ranju put away the smile on his face and put on a cold expression. His eyes flickered with cold light, and he slowly pulled out the Zanpakuto on his waist. The endless storm, all return to my palm, whisper, cat demon. Quote. Matsumoto Ranju's Shikai liberation language is the same as Old Man Yamamoto. It belongs to the longer one, and may be the strongest in each series. Zanpakuto's liberation language is relatively long. 546 the strongest Zanpakuto. Call. As soon as Matsumoto's voice fell, around Matsumoto's body, there were as many as 9 huge tornadoes soaring into the sky. Any one of such terrifying tornadoes in the world is extremely destructive and super catastrophic. Not to mention that there are as many as 9 tornadoes, and after the emergence of these 9 tornadoes, with the continuous ultra-high-speed rotation, the wind speed is getting bigger and bigger, and the power is obviously getting stronger and stronger. It is also the strongest Zanpakuto, but the power of Shikai alone is far from what Benkai's Hitsugaya can match. It's the wind, it's only Shikai that has such power. This is the Qingfeng Zanpakuto, and its power is not inferior to the commander's most powerful Zanpakuto of the flame type, and it's even more powerful. No less. Impossible, could it be that your Zanpakuto is? Komamura Zojun screamed in disbelief, and Hitsugaya Toshiro, who was beside him, seemed to feel something and his pupils were also shrinking rapidly. Are you talking about the strongest Zanpakuto of the Qingfeng type? That's right, my Zanpakuto cat demon is indeed the strongest Zanpakuto of the Qingfeng type. That's why I said playing with the wind in front of me, you're still worse far. Matsumoto Ranju smiled coquettishly. Her charming smile is really tempting, but it's a pity that almost everyone is now attracted by her words. Is this the gap? Hitsugaya Toshiro lowered his head and muttered to himself. Her is the strongest Zanpakuto of the Qingfeng type, but it is just a Shikai that has a discoloration of the sky and the earth, like a disaster, and has the ice and snow type. The strongest Zanpakuto, if Hitsugaya Toshiro achieves this level, he can barely do it even if he uses the strongest Tianxiang Yulin. When we got here, the Zanpakuto that Matsumoto had been hiding all along was finally revealed. Those who knew it were surprised and didn't believe it, but Lu Chengkong felt it was a matter of course. The original Matsumoto Ranju was still able to perform as a vice when his spiritual power was taken away by Aizen. Captain level, and also the first sister among all the vice captains. Even ordering all the vice captains, there is basically no problem. If she loses her spiritual power, she can still do this. Then her Zanpakuto can still be Shikai, but it is an incomplete Shikai, and it can't even be regarded as a real Shikai at all. It doesn't have the power that Shikai should have, it's too weak. After she lost her spiritual power, Shikai's ability is just that the blade turns into smoke, using all the surrounding sand as combat power. The place where the dust touches can do the same cutting action by waving the handle of the knife. This ability is really unsatisfactory. Even in Lu Chengkong's words, Shikai, who lost her spiritual power, used only a small part of her Zanpakuto's ability. Now it seems that Lu Chengkong is right. Matsumoto Ranju, who has not lost her spiritual power, has fully awakened the Zanpakuto. With sufficient spiritual power as support, she has awakened her true Zanpakuto, the strongest Qingfeng type Zanpakuto. All of this is taken for granted by Lu Chengkong. Because of her own spiritual strength, her aptitude is much higher than that of Ichimaru Jin, whom Aizen values. It can be said that among so many people Lu Chengkong has seen, her aptitude is among the best. Kind of. Otherwise, Aizen wouldn't need to spend so much effort to capture her spiritual power. There is no reason to have that gray cat with poor power. The only explanation is that the gray cat in her original book can only be regarded as a small part of her real Shikai's strength, and the real one follows the spirit. The power was taken away and she fell into an eternal sleep, buried deep in Matsumoto Ranju's soul, but now there is no such situation. What Matsumoto Ranju now has is not a gray cat, but a cat demon, the strongest breeze. Department of Zanpakuto. I really didn't expect it. It's so scary. How come everyone around him is so scary? First Zakagi Kenpachi, later Shifunjin Yaiki, and now Matsumoto Ranju. Komamura Zojun said in a deep voice. Leader of Bavant, see. This is the real manipulation of the wind. You are just a little trick. All the winds between heaven and earth are under my control. You can die. Ranju left the sentence. Her Zanpakuto blade was still there after Shikai, but if she didn't concentrate and her eyesight was not good enough, she wouldn't be able to see her blade at all. Because the surface of her blade is just like old man Yamamoto's blade like fire, burning a layer of raging fire, while Matsumoto Ranju is covered with a layer of infinitely compressed storm, with a gentle wave, the rapid rotation covering the blade. The cutting force possessed by the storm can completely cut the air completely, and even the space is distorted. Lu Chengkong has also seen Matsumoto Ranju use these storms with all his strength to even cut a crack in the space. Although it was repaired by the law of the world in an instant, it was already terrifying. Completely grasped, thoroughly grasped. With the blade of Matsumoto Ranju facing Carrier God for a while, the 9 tornadoes that were raging around Matsumoto Ranju immediately whistled and surrounded Carrier God, and then squeezed towards Carrier God in the middle at the same time. Brush. Like a sharp tool cutting tofu, almost no sound came out, and there was no barrier. The tenacious body of Carrier God couldn't resist the erosion of the tornado at all. In an instant, it was ravaged by 9 tornadoes, and there was no trace of damage left. Even if he wanted to absorb the spirit, he couldn't do it. Because he didn't react at all, and even just felt the pain, he completely lost consciousness, and he couldn't even shout before he died. This attack is best described in this sentence. In the face of Matsumoto's Zanpakuto's all-round attack without dead ends, the enemy can't sing ghosts, let alone dodge, just like watching the breeze is dull, everything is just standing all the time, returning to the dust. Bavant, who has given us headaches for so long and is difficult to kill, was killed by her with a wave of her hand. Kurosaki Ichigo only felt that his head was not enough. Why was anyone around that man so terrifying? Husband, this sandbag is not durable at all. It will be gone in one time. Next time you find a better one and let me do it, it's boring. Matsumoto Renki's words immediately caused Komamura Zojin, Kurosaki Ichigo, and even Hitsugaya Toshiro, who was still in shock, to have black lines on his forehead, and a drop of cold sweat left on the back of his head. Come back, you must be so scary. Let you go. Okay. Lu Chengkong nodded, facing the occasional little girl-like cuteness. He enjoyed it very much. He embraced Matsumoto's willow waist like no one else, and before stepping out, he was greeted by the complicated eyes of everyone. Left. 547 Aizen is in action. Hey, it's really unpalatable. Are human souls so unpalatable? Yami used the soul suction on several humans in front of him. These are just the most common humans. How can they bear a yacho? Caste-level shattered soul-sucking is not without exception. Of course, Yuzi Longui is the only exception. What's the matter? Ulquiorra, is this the person you said you were looking for? Yami walked up to Ryazawa Arazawa, and faced Ryazawa Arazawa with the spiritual pressure released by Yami's Vivi. The soul is close to collapse. Let me see clearly first. Ulquiorra Cipher was an extremely cautious person. He looked at Aizawa Longui carefully, and then said disappointedly after a while. No, just get closer to her. Her soul it's close to collapse, it's a piece of junk. Really? Since it's rubbish, then let's die. Yami felt a little disappointed, and immediately kicked Aizawa Ryuki, who couldn't move at all. Boom. The expected scene of blood and blood did not appear, but a burly man with arms that looked like a virtual body barely blocked Yami's blow. Is it classmate Chadu? Yuzawa Longui breathed a sigh of relief. After all, no one wanted to die, and she was still in her prime, and a lot of young and beautiful girls didn't want to die. It's so powerful. It's just that a random blow has such great power. I can't beat them back just now. Chadu Taihu was taken aback, but on the surface he was very calm. In fact, he was more like a real warrior than Kurosaki Ichigo, who was more angry than he was, and would chirp when something happened. No matter what his heart was, his surface is very calm, but it is a pity that his potential is far less than that of Kurosaki Ichigo, and he does not have the same background and luck as Kurosaki Ichigo. Otherwise, under the same conditions as Kurosaki Ichigo, his achievements will definitely surpass Kurosaki Ichigo. He has all the qualities that a true warrior should have. He will never back down in the face of a strong enemy, and he will never retreat in the face of death. He is never afraid of danger, and his emotions are invisible. No matter what his heart is, he will only go to going. These are things that Kurosaki Ichigo does not have at present. Ulquiorra, what about this? I have to say that Yami's ability to detect Reiatsu is really poor. Yami, I advise you to exercise your probing nerves. An opponent of this level can see that they are garbage. Ulquiorra Cipher's face was very calm, but Vivi admired the man in front of him, knowing that in the case of losing, he has not flinched in the slightest, but it is a pity that his strength is too poor. Cut. Yami cut in an unhappy voice. He didn't dare to vent his anger at Ulquiorra, because the departure of Hannibal, Nelly and Stark made the 10-blade. The numbering is obviously different. Tammy is still the same number as the original, but Ulquiorra Cipher is not. Now the Balagan Ruzan is the 10th blade, and his Ulquiorra is the 20th blade, but he will return to the blade in the second stage. Even if he is at the level of the original book, he is actually better than the first 3. 10 blades difference. Even if you can't win, you can still be invincible. After all, everyone who can become a Vastord-level void has his special ability. Stark is infinitely illusory, Balagang has a terrifying death energy, and Ulquiorra Cipher also has a second-stage return blade. The extent to which it develops depends entirely on how the virtual itself does it. As for the 30th blade and the later ones, I will explain it at an appropriate time. Chadu Taihu released his spiritual pressure, concentrated on the arm and punched it out like a laser cannon, but unfortunately the spiritual pressure was too scattered, and it did not condense at all, let alone after passing through. Compressed, but it is indeed difficult to do it with Chadu Taihu's current strength. After all, he is not a ghost, nor is he a god of death, he is just a human with special abilities. Poochie. Yami punched Chadu Taihu lightly and vomited blood and fell down, but it is admirable that Chadu Taihu's face did not change in the slightest from beginning to end. Even if he lost, he would not die. Go to hell. Seeing Chadu Taihu collapsed, Yami kicked Chadu Taihu again, along with Arasawa Ryuki, who seemed to collapse at any moment when he barely opened his eyes. There are a lot of accidents sometimes, especially when Ichigo-san appears. It is usually an accidental appearance, but unfortunately there is no music for his appearance this time. A thick and long, fork knife, directly touched the palm of Yami's palm. Brother Yihu, who had not solved the hidden dangers of his own emptiness, made his debut very dashingly, and even showed off very arrogantly. Chadu, we made an agreement. You can't go down if you punch for each other's sake. I will definitely beat these two guys very quickly. Hey, Wolkiora, is that this guy? Sure enough, Yami was still so speechless. The Reiatsu of Kurosaki Ichigo in the world of the god of death is the easiest to detect, even if it's just now even the Shinigami who entered the school can do it, so he never knew that the Reiatsu that was constantly turning on waste resources like a light bulb could be seen even with the eyes, right? Maybe only a guy like Yami still needs to ask. Orange hair, black bankai, it's him, but what I didn't expect was that your pointless attacks just now led to the target. A ray of light appeared in Ulquioricifer's eyes, but still as handsome as before, he stood there and said to Yami. Since it's the goal, then it's great, you die for me. Yami shouted excitedly, since it's the goal, no matter how bad the strength is, it won't be too bad, so he mustered up his strength immediately. Knocked over. Bankai Tiansu Ozanyu, Kurosaki Ichigo shouted, the spiritual pressure burst out. The Zanyu in his hand immediately shrunk into Tiansu Ozanyu, the swords and fists collided, and the ground under his feet shattered immediately. Stones splashed. Is it you who interrupted Chadu's right hand just now? Kurosaki Ichigo said coldly. What if it's me? Yami also sneered back. Obviously he didn't know what was going on with his slow head turning. Click. Kurosaki Ichigo jumped, and Tiansu Ozanyu pulled Yami's right hand at a very fast speed. The blood splashed and Yami's pain screamed at the same time. Yami's right hand had been cut off and fell to the ground. What an idiot. You didn't know the strength of the other party and made a rash move. I told you just now that you need to exercise your probing nerves, but he broke the dense steel skin so easily and cut him off. The right hand, I heard that he had such a Reiatsu not long after he learned Bankai. But even so, his strength could not pose any threat to Aizen-sama, not even the top 6 of the 10 blades. Ulquioricifer didn't help Yami in such a situation. In his opinion, Yami was simply being a cheapskate. He had already warned him so many times, but he was still so reckless. Who was to blame? 548 The power of one finger. You seem to be in a tough fight now, do you want to make a substitution? Ulquioricifer is still very good to his peers after all. Although he is cold on the surface, he will help whenever he can. Don't be so annoying, Yami shouted angrily. Except for Vastord in the 10 blades, the symbols of the spiritual power possessed by the other broken faces were nothing but Aizen forcibly using the power of Bengyu. It was catalyzed by it, so Yami couldn't control his own anger at all, but was instead controlled by his own anger. It seems that I can only use it. Yami slowly pulled out the Zanpakudo, obviously planning to return to the blade. Does it need to be turned against an opponent of this level? Ulquioricifer was obviously different this time. Obviously, Yami's ignorance made him a little angry, and he deliberately stimulated him. Although he was also used after collapsing Jade, his life achievements basically stopped. But before he used Bengyu, he was a genuine Worstard after all. Although he was also in the most dangerous period of the Worsted stage, he was obviously better than the previous stage of Stark and Nellie L. Not so dangerous. I told you to stop being so annoying. Yami was already provoked by his anger at this time, and his sanity was even less, and he even dared not talk back to Ulquiorra. Woke up. He said Zanpakuto. Is he the same as me? Kurosaki Ichigo's pupils shrank. His surprise flashed past. Thinking of Shiro Ichigo in his body, his spiritual pressure suddenly decreased, and his heart also sounded by Yihu's voice. What's wrong? Are you afraid? Let me come. Kurosaki Ichigo did not expect that Shiro Ichigo would actually appear to compete with him for the body at this time. Immediately, most of his energy was concentrated on fighting against Shiro Ichigo. It would be good to have 1 or 2 achievements in combat power, and Yami obviously also feeling the change of Kurosaki Ichigo. This time he actually had a bit of a head, no longer using the return blade, but seized the opportunity to rush up to pick up the bargain, and soon Kurosaki Ichigo was beaten all over his body. Strange, this kid's spiritual pressure is too turbulent, right? Could it be that he can't control Bankai? Impossible, but it is really too strange. When the spiritual pressure was high, it was actually higher than me now. When it is low, it is no different from garbage. Quote. Ulquiorra's heart radiated all sorts of thoughts, and he didn't stop him when he saw that Yami was going to take out Ichigo Kurosaki. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the dust rolled up, blocking Ulquiorra's vision, but soon as Gami's huge body flew upside down like a cannonball, he could see clearly, but he saw when he knew who was coming, his face changed suddenly. Although he's a piece of garbage, I'm too embarrassed to not save him. Liu Chenkong brought Orihime Inoue, who was successful in his studies and far surpassed the original book in terms of his accomplishments in Shundan Liuhua, and came to the world. Obviously, he thought of the original book. Zilongui seems to have this disaster, and finally Urahara Kazuki came forward to solve it. But now Urahara Kazuki is the captain of the Soul Society, and Saifeng Yuanyaki is her obedient wife. How can she care about this? And Longwei can be regarded as a beauty no matter what. In addition, she is the best friend of his prospective wife, Orihime Inoue, and he also wants to see how much Orihime Inoue's level has improved after staying with Uno Hanaritsu for a while, so he came here. As for saving Kurosaki Ichigo, Liu Chenkong didn't plan to take action. After all, it had nothing to do with him, he was dead or alive, but now the kind-hearted Orihime Inoue was in front of him, and he promised Kurosaki Masaki to abolish it if he could. Kurosaki Ichigo's power of death, let him be an ordinary person and not kill him. Now that he has come here, saving him is just a matter of waving his hands. Doing so will make Kurosaki Masaki feel more favorable to him and make his relationship progress faster, so why not do it? What's more important is that even if he doesn't take action, someone will take action, because he has already sensed that Kurosaki Ishin has come to the vicinity and will take action at any time. No matter what, Kurosaki Ichigo can survive even if he doesn't take action, but if he doesn't take action, it will affect his impression of Inoue Orihime. In any case, Kurosaki Ichigo is also Inoue Orihime's classmate. With her kindness, she will definitely save her classmates if Kurosaki Ichigo doesn't have a head-on conflict with her, so Liu Chenkong can't stop it, right? Moreover, if she doesn't save herself by then, she will definitely be unhappy if Kurosaki Masaki finds out, although she swears with her soul that she will not betray her even if she is like this. But his chauvinism is destined that he does not want to rely on this so-called soul oath to restrain Kurosaki Masaki alone. He wants to get Kurosaki Masaki with his heart, so he can get such good benefits just by waving his hand. Why? Happy but not. Anyway, at the level of Kurosaki Ichigo, even using Wuyu is just an ant in front of him. It is easy to kill him. You must know that Liu Chenkong's strength, who returned from a world in the world, is more and more unfathomable. With his current strength in addition to his own woman, there are 8,000 streams, and now in the soul world, only Ujiwali can be valued by him. Yummy, let's go. A picture flashed across Ulquiorra's mind, that is, the picture of Liu Chenkong riding the still leopard Grimjow to the Void Night Palace. The power of collapsing jade catalyzes. His strength has been greatly improved, but even so, he dare not say that he can defeat the 10th Blade Stark of the year. let alone the most dangerous death god in his opinion, and he hardly even thinks about it. He gave a loud shout to Yami. Damn, Ulquiorra, I've always listened to you, but you let me be beaten and go away. Whoever dares to do this to my Yami will die, false flash. It's a pity that Yami, who was already in anger, couldn't hear it at all. Just now, he didn't understand what was going on, and was sent flying by a huge force. Just when he was about to attack, Ulquiorra actually to go by yourself. Idiot. Ulquiorra had no hope for Yami anymore, and immediately opened the black cavity and wanted to go to the Void Knight Palace when Yami flew upside down again, letting his instinctive hands block it, but it's a pity the force that blasted Yami was obviously not something that Ulquiorra could resist, and the two giants, including Yami, were pushed away for dozens of meters before barely stopping. Since you're here, it would be too bad to leave without leaving something behind. Lu Chengkong retracted a finger that he stretched out. With one shot, the red virtual flash in front of him was extinguished, and the force between the fingers directly pierced through the air and hit Yami's body directly like a shock wave across such a distance. 549 The death of Jamie. One finger. Yami, who was in a rage, seemed to be drenched in a bucket of cold water at the moment. The anger in his heart was extinguished immediately, and he looked at the man in front of him and said in horror. Actually, you don't need a finger. Lu Chengkong grinned isho, revealing his white teeth. His body shook, and the air seemed to become very turbid and heavy in an instant. Ulquiorra, who just wanted to open the black cavity to escape again, seemed to be pressed by hundreds of mountains on his shoulders, unable to move at all. He did all of them, not to mention only Achukas's Yami. I said it would be too bad not to leave anything behind since we're here, Ulquiorra, we meet again. Lu Chengkong looked at the big dummy in front of him, and thought to himself that it was a pity. Such a good big dummy would definitely be a gold medal fighter if he used it for himself, and he was the kind that was absolutely loyal, but now he was obviously smitten by that idiot in blue dye. Using the half-unsealed Bengu ruined the future of a lifetime. It's a pity that Ulquiorra couldn't open his mouth to speak under the pressure of Lu Chengkong's face, and he couldn't even move his eyelids. Orihime, let me see your abilities. Lu Chengkong ignored the two broken faces of Ulquiorra and Yami, but turned his head and said to Inoue Orihime, who supported Longwei. Ah, I see. Inoue Orihime was stunned for a moment, then overjoyed. She was still very useful, otherwise Lu Chengkong wouldn't take him too far. This kind of feeling of being valued by Lu Chengkong makes her simple, cute and cuddly. Inoue Orihime, who was a little stupid and natural, was overjoyed. Shuangtian Gaiden Shenying, Xiaochang I refuse. Under the shocked gaze of Kurosaki Ichigo, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog, Chadu Taihu, whose right hand would be destroyed, actually returned to the shield in Shuangtian. It was restored to its original state in an instant under the repair surgery, and there was no trace of scars at all. It was exactly the same as before the injury. When did this Inoue Orihime, who seemed to him know nothing, actually have such a powerful ability? Could it be the reason of this man again? Let's not talk about other abilities of Shundan Liuhua. The most important thing for Orihime is her prosthetic technique. At this point she is already 2 years from the original book, and she is far incomparable. It seems that recommending her to the godmother for teaching is a very correct decision, but what I didn't expect is that the godmother can make Inoue Orihime, who has the power different from herself and does not belong to the god of death, make such rapid progress. Lu Chengkong quietly watched Chadu Taihu's hand from never to return to its original state. It only took 2 seconds. Compared with the dozens of seconds or even half a minute of the original work, the victory was too much, and the speed of repair was much improved. How about it? I'm very good in the sky. Inoue Orihime said with a cute smile. It's really amazing. I think now, except for the godmother, who can outperform you in terms of healing, no one can compare to you, and I believe that it won't be long until you become a god of death and master Shikai and Bankai. I think you'll be on the same level as your godmother in no time. Lu Chengkong nodded in admiration and said that he didn't mean to say good things to Inoue Orihime. It was indeed that Inoue Orihime did a great job in this regard. I don't dare to compare to the teacher, she is the real powerful. When Inoue Orihime said Hana, she immediately put on an expression of admiration, and love. It seemed that she really admired Unoji. Walai, but no wonder. Uno Hanaritsu was able to use Kyoka Suzuki's ability just by researching the energy of Kyoka Suzuki that Aizen exerted on her 5 senses. It was really unconvincing. Orihime, close your eyes. Lu Chengkong suddenly said to Inoue Orihime. Although Inoue Orihime didn't know what was going on, she closed her eyes very obediently. You're called Yami, right? I'm sorry, farewell. Lu Chengkong gently tapped Yami across a few dozen meters. Ripple, Yami only felt like he was hit by a planet. The unbelievable huge power made him unable to even shout, and he was directly crushed into powder. The breeze blew, and Yami didn't leave anything behind and went directly. Ulkiola, let's go, help me tell Lanran a word. Don't take care of the scar and forget the pain. I was able to let him go and let him roll into the virtual circle, and now I can also get into the virtual circle. He's got his head off, and it's best to pick up my tail and be a human until I'm not strong enough. Lu Chengkong waved his right hand after speaking, and Ulkier Lassifa's pupils shrank, because a black cavity appeared beside him. This is an ability that only 10 blades can master, and a god of death can actually use it. However, Lu Chengkong didn't give him a chance to be surprised at all, and Ulkioricifer was pushed in without being able to resist, and went directly back to the Zai Palace. Let's go, Orihime. Lu Chengkong ignored Ichigo Kurosaki. Just as Aizen said, does the existence of 3-dimensional elements need to pay attention to the existence of 2-dimensional elements? No need at all. Zonkong, but I don't feel relieved to put Longui here. Can I take her to the Soul Realm? Inoue Orihime hesitated for a moment, and then said timidly. Obviously, Longui's is her best friend. When did you become so smart? Lu Chengkong blurted out in surprise, causing Inoue Orihime to blush, asking himself, am I usually stupid? It's fine if she's willing to go, then I'll clean up Lanran and let her go back. Lu Chengkong nodded. Of course he didn't mind such a trivial matter, and he was already saying in his heart, you entered the Soul Realm. Don't even think about leaving. Longwei, I don't know how to tell you, as long as you go with me, it's very safe there. If Inoue Orihime, a pretty girl with a natural and usually stupid head, could explain it to Longwei clearly. Curious. Yeah, although Yusawa Ryuji didn't know what Inoue Orihime was talking about, he still understood the general meaning. It is indeed very unsafe here. Anyway, she is also parentless like Orihime. The only thing she cares about is does Orihime have anything to do. I want to be with Orihime the most. Now that Inoue Orihime said that, of course she would not refuse. Ichigo Kurosaki, I would like to advise you, it's up to you to listen to it or not. It's best not to be impulsive until you solve the hidden dangers in your body, otherwise you will not only be the victim, but also the people around you. You are very lucky, you have a good background, good luck, good qualifications, and there is a person around you who throws a punch for you, so cherish it. Quote. 550 almost got mad at Aizen. Lu Chengkong didn't want to say anything and left, but after seeing Chadu Taihu who had been rescued by Inoue Orihime on the other side, he still admired Chadu Taihu, a man who talked less and did more things when he watched anime. Yes, it was also because of him that Lu Chengkong left a sentence and left. He said this not only because of Chadu Taihu, but also because of Kurosaki Masaki. Anyway, it doesn't take much effort to say a word. He believes that after what he did today is known by Kurosaki Masaki, her goodwill towards him will skyrocket. At that time, not only her body, but also her heart, which has gradually begun to favor her, will be completely handed over to him, and you can gain a lot without paying anything. Of course, Lu Chengkong likes to do this kind of business. Chadu. After Lu Chengkong left, Kurosaki Ichigo stood up and walked to Chadu Taihu. After confirming that it was all right, he breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking of what Lu Chengkong had just said, thinking of his current situation, for a while, he didn't know what to do. In the original book, he could still find Mako Hirako or Kazuki Urahara, but now he really doesn't know who to find. On the other hand, Ulquiorra Lassifa has returned to the virtual Night Palace in the virtual circle, but the way to go back is completely different from the original. Welcome back to Ulquiorra, but why is Yami missing? Aizen looked at Ulquiorra Sifa in front of him, looked left and right, and even felt that there was indeed no Reiatsu of Yami nearby. But it really doesn't look like Ulquiorra Sifa has fought. How could it be gone? Lord Aizen, the task you explained has been completed, but there are some accidents. Ulquiorra Sifa did not hide or need to hide. His personality determines what kind of big illusory he is. Speaking of which, Ulquiorra Sifa didn't say any extra words, and directly scooped out his eyeballs. After all, what he saw with his own eyes was sometimes more useful than what he said in the Smallpox Dragon and Phoenix. The images began to appear. I have to say that Ulquiorra Sifa's ability is really good. It's like watching a movie. This task. At the beginning, Aizen and even the 10 blades of everyone present showed disdain, and even became a little interested when Kurosaki Ichigo appeared, but after seeing Tomi's right hand cut off, except for the 10 blades, the other broken faces outside were surprised. No matter whether Yami's strength is the weakest among the 10 blades, as long as it is the 10 blades, it is not comparable to them. But soon, even 10 blades Baohuo Lan Ran's face was moved. With the appearance of Lu Changkong, a finger broke away Yami's illusory flash, and the remaining power penetrated the air and directly smashed Yami together with Wu. Ulquiorra Sifa was knocked flying, and in the end, under the pressure of Lu Changkong's spiritual pressure, Yami died without a whole corpse. When Lan Ran saw Lu Changkong's last words, he was so angry that his face was very blue, and his 7 orifices were smoking. Thriller and surprise. Aizen, how can you be the god of death who can be my city's Maru Yinshibo? If it wasn't for me wanting to take revenge on my own, I wouldn't be too lazy to waste so much time on you. It seems that your mirror flower doesn't want to. As powerful as I imagined, there are at least a lot of people who can break it. Ichimaru Jin thought to himself. Aizen is Aizen after all, and the livid face was put away when it appeared. There were only Ichimaru Jin and Balagang Ruzan who wanted to see Aizen's jokes the most, and the attentive Ulquiorra Sifa noticed the momentary change in Aizen's face. You have done a good job. As for Yami's death, you can't blame him for being weak, it can only be said that the enemy he faced was too strong. Aizen took a deep breath and said slowly. I said, Ulquiorra, you are too useless. If you kill the so-called target directly at the beginning, and then retreat, don't waste so much time making excuses and saying that it is not worth killing. That guy Yami won't die either. An arrogant and provocative voice suddenly came from the side of Ulquiorra Sifa. All the faces except Aizen looked over. The owner of this voice had blue flamboyant hair and a face hanging on his face. With a provocative smile, the whole person looks very handsome, cold, full of publicity and pride, but there are many broken faces present but they dare not speak, because behind this broken face with blue hair depicts a number, 3. If there is no accident, this broken face is the third-ranked existence in the 10 blades. He and Ulquiorra Sifa's rivalry with other broken faces does not dare to intervene, nor does he dare to interfere. Grimjow, I don't think you understand what I mean, let alone the appearance of the death god in the end. He belongs to the unexpected factor. Aizen-sama is not concerned about the strength of this death god, but his growth. After all, when his spiritual pressure is high, it is indeed very powerful. I think if he leaves it alone, he will kill himself. Or it will become a pawn for us in the future, so I didn't shoot him directly. Said Ulquiorra Sifa. That's why I called you an idiot. Since you said that his future growth will exceed your expectations, and then turned against us, what are you going to do? Grimjow said that he is the most unique existence in the Void Night Palace, because he is the only Bromian who has not been transformed by Benyu. For his self-confidence, he disdains to use the power of Benyu and becomes Lu Changkong's mount. He has learned a lot, he believes in his own hands, and he also knows that using Benyu, his life achievements are over, he will not use it idiotically, and it is also the only 3 Vashi in Zai Palace. one of the Todd-level phantoms. With the opportunity that Lu Chengkong took away from him at the beginning and Stark's teaching, coupled with the crazy battle in the virtual circle, he finally faced a powerful enemy again, and realized the symbol of his own spiritual power in the middle of life and death. Successfully advanced to Vastord. Although it is only a beginner level, it should not be underestimated, because he changed his future with his own hands, and at the same time, because of his pride, he did not accept the transformation of Bengyu, because he is the only 3 in Zai Palace. Vastord's Great Void. In addition, he didn't care about Aizen's domination of the Zai Palace on the surface, and he even carried out some of Aizen's orders. In order to preserve his fighting power during the war, Aizen did not attack him. This is mainly because of his self-confidence. There is also the value of Grimjiao's use. He believed that even Balagang and Ulquiorra had succumbed to his subordinates. This proud and arrogant guy would be shocked by himself. Aizen, who wanted to completely subdue this proud leopard, did not kill him in the end. Anyway, he can obey his own orders, and kill him when he has no use value. 551 Grimjiao's Little Juju. If that time comes, I will kill him. Although Ulquiorra's voice was flat, the murderous intention contained in it made many of the broken faces present chill. Grimjiao's tone suffocated, and he couldn't say a word for a while. After all, Ulquiorra's strength is obvious to all, and it can be said that killing Kurosaki Ichigo can be easily captured. It's very well said. Since that's the case, then there's no problem. Ulquiorra is now completely his own subordinate. Of course Aizen will help Ulquiorra, not to mention Aizen was absolutely delighted by Kiyorasifa's words, because Ulquiorra's words were more powerful, although Grimjiao's words made sense and were the best solution. But if he really does this, he is not telling himself that he is afraid of Aizen, afraid of a death god who is just an ant now. Aizen's anxiety and horror caused by seeing Lu Chengkong's strength just now disappeared. HMPH, Aizen, you're such an idiot, do you think you can conquer me? Even if your strength is not what I can defeat now, but yours is just a delusion, I Grimjiao will only be convinced by one person in my life, and that is you Lu Chengkong just saw. Maybe you self-righteous guy still doesn't know my true identity, Ulquiorra. Since you won't kill him, then I'll kill it for you, let me see if he's really amazing. Grimjiao made a secret decision in his heart. Tonight is also the time to leave by himself. Now in the Void Knight Palace, he no longer values anyone except Ulquiorra. As for Aizen's strength, it is not the current one. You can conquer yourself. He is belligerent, eager to fight against powerful opponents, and never afraid to die in battle, but he is not an idiot. He knows that if he goes to Kurosaki Ichigo tonight, Aizen, a shameful guy, sees that he dares to go against his even if the order doesn't kill him, he will find himself in trouble. Since this is the case, why bother to ask for trouble, and give him the opportunity to find trouble for Aizen? It is time to leave, anyway, staying here will not help his strength, and he can't let go of his body and mind like before with Aizen. The fight with Ulquiorra, and the shit. Or GG, you and Long Gui go to the Soul Realm first. By the way, I still have some things to do here. Remember to tell Yi that she is optimistic about Bachenliu, and go to Lisa to tell Ju Nanbai to come over. Come, of course, and Harabel, too. Lu Chengkong suddenly opened the black voice that went to Saranjay Lufu, and then said to Inoue Orihime, after returning from the break, Bachenliu didn't know if his head was convulsing, or if the sun rose from the west. She was breaking when she was in the world. She said that she was bored and wanted to go back, but after returning to the soul world, she actually said that she was going to retreat. Facing the strange Bachenliu of the elves, Lu Chengkong really had no choice, and he thought it was a good thing. After all, he had never seen Bachenliu settle down and cultivate. It was a good thing anyway. Saifeng Yuan took care of her every night. Who knows if the time of retreat is the most defenseless time for Bachenliu. Yi was the first goddess of death to come into contact with Bachenliu. Apart from Ujawali, Bachenliu and her should have the richest relationship. There shouldn't be any danger for her to take care of Bachenliu. Lu Chengkong also felt that he had already told Yi that he was not safe. If there is any accident, he can send someone to let Maojawali come over. With so many arrangements, he does not believe that there is any security problem in Bachinliu. Obviously, Lu Chengkong has worked hard for Bachinliu, this little treasure. Yakian Ryu, the first girl she knew after she first came to this world. However, it occupies a pivotal position in Lu Chengkong's heart, at least not counting the wives in the One Piece King of Pirates world, but all the people in the world of death, even Saifeng Yuanyei and Luanju are in Lu Chengkong's heart. No 8,000 streams are important. Until now, Lu Chengkong still has a very deep memory. He clearly remembers the words that Bachinliu said in a tender but coherent voice with a firm voice when he was still a baby who looked less than 1 year old. I don't have a name, I don't have parents, I live in the 79 area of North Liuhun Street, Grass Deer. My memory there is nothing but blood, and I am surrounded by creatures that are closer to beasts than people. For me as a baby, it's not surprising when I was trampled to death. That's where you appeared, Lu Chengkong, in the 80th area of Biliuhun Street. From the deepest depths of darkness, you cut off the bloody world around me in an instant. Then gave me my name, and I wouldn't be here without you. Yes, from that day on, you are my world. This sentence has a sad feeling every time I think of it until now. It can be said to be deeply remembered and even deep into the bone marrow. If he said who he loved the most in this life, he would definitely say Khalifa and Hancock. If he said who he loved the most, he would definitely say it was Bachinliu, although love and love are only one word difference. But they are two completely different meanings and feelings, just as family affection and love cannot be compared. Oh, although Inoue Orihime had a reluctant expression on her face, she was very smart at this time. Knowing what to do would make Lu Chengkong even happier. Lu Chengkong nodded. It's so sweet, Orihime, get ready, I'll eat you next time you go. Lu Chengkong suddenly kissed Inoue Orihime's cherry lips like lightning, and left a kiss in her ear. After saying something that only she could hear, she waved her hand gently, and Orihime Inoue and Arasawa Ryuki, who saw that she was taking advantage of him and gnashing his teeth, had already entered the Black Chamber and returned to the Lu residence. Okay, Orihime is gone. That idiot Aizen sees Orihime's ability and won't be foolish enough to try to catch her. Orihime Inoue, who studied with Uno Hanaritsu, if you are Aizen, you'll be able to beat her. If she takes it away, I'll have to write a letter to you. Lu Chengkong let out a sigh of relief, as if he had thought of something, and showed a very strange smile. If Yi Yi or Luanju were there, he would definitely say that her husband must have taken a fancy to a beautiful beauty and must want to take action. These broken faces catalyzed by Benyu came to the world. Old man Yamamoto should send someone, I don't know who it will be. Luanju will definitely not appear. I don't know if those people are still the same as the original. It's really interesting, Hannibal, when I was still having a headache how to pursue you, I didn't expect that you would actually deliver it to your door. 552 Life is a god of death, but a genius. At night, extreme danger seems to be hidden in the dark night of Kakuza town, which surrounds the entire Kakuza town. Some caring people, such as Kurosaki Ishin, and Daiyinyu City, are likely to be the most powerful destruction of the original book. Ishida Ryuzan of the teacher. It can be seen from the fact that he can be friends with the former vice captain of Team Zero, Kurosaki Ishin. It is not even compared to the boss of the original book, the ruler of the Invisible Empire that appeared after Aizen, who is suspected to be a Quincy. Where to go? What's more important is that the rulers of the Invisible Empire have lived for thousands of years or even thousands of years, and Ishida Longxian is more than 100 years and a few hundred years. Not a lot. Under such circumstances, his achievements are still so high, and if Kurosaki, who used to be the vice captain of Team Zero, should have his eyes above the top, he can see the difference so much if he values him so much. Wherever it sounds. Why, even though you are a Quincy, but you look down on the Quincy so much. Without Ishida Longxian's experience of strong winds and waves, it is impossible for Ishida Yulong to understand Ishida Longxian's thoughts. I'm not interested, but you're not talented. Ishida Longxian coolly dropped a sentence that Lu Chengkong liked the most, and was also the most pretended to be B, making Ishida Yulong speechless. But even so, Ishida Ryujin trains this son who, in his opinion, is completely incompetent every day. This kind of disagreement can be seen as long as an outsider calms down. Unfortunately, Ishida Yulong is a fan of the authorities. It might take a while for him to fully understand. Brush. A very quaint portal suddenly opened somewhere in the world, and a group of people dressed in completely different clothes from the world came out. To be precise, it was not a human being, but a death god. The old man is also true. Is it necessary for me to come to this world with such a broken face? A man with yellow hair and very unique teeth said listlessly. Captain Hirako, please be more serious. Hitsugaya Toshiro, who looked like a bad boy with silver hair, had to correct Hirako Mako's mistake. That's right, the Shinigami of this line is precisely because of the appearance of the broken face, and the Shinigami who was forced by old man Yamamoto to come to the world for a period of time. The representative is of course Hirako Mako, and his assistant is of course Hitsugaya Toshiro. As for the man behind him and the original work, there is not much difference between the death gods that appeared, Rukia, a Sanjing Renji, Madarame, a Yasugawa Gunjin plus the first two captain-level death gods, a total of 6 death gods. It's all the fault of that bastard, Kazuki, for asking me to teach that brat called Ichigo Kurosaki to become absurd. Hirako Mako sighed. To be honest, he didn't want to come or he didn't want to come, but that guy Urahara Kazuki brought up Kurosaki Ichigo's problem during the captain's meeting, and said something righteous and awe-inspiring to let Hirako Mako come. If he couldn't refuse, in the end, after the old man Yamamoto asked his opinion symbolically, he immediately decided to let him come. In fact, what no one knows is that Hirako Mako laughed proudly in his heart. Kazuki, I am very grateful to you. I am used to eating the food in this world, and it took me so long to go back to the soul world. I almost faded out. I didn't expect that. You're going to do that. It's really giving a pillow to sleep. Because of Liu Changkong, Pingzi Mako and other mask core group did not live in a warehouse incognito as in the original book. Instead, they built a high-profile palace like Liu Changkong to enjoy life, typically enjoying life. At the same time, it is also demonstrating against the Soul Society. Now Hirako Mako thinks about the fact that she promised to go back to be the captain and was fooled by the old man Yamamoto with a public apology. Be free, enjoy life and have good things to eat. Now in the soul world, he can't get enough to eat, and he can't enjoy it. He still has a pile of documents in front of him every day. It's obviously a vase, and she often goes to the hospital, the 4th division, for treatment, which makes Hirako Mako burst into tears every time she thinks of it. No, that guy in the sky eats and drinks spicy food in the corpse soul world. It's the same when he comes to this world. Go to him to eat. Hirako Mako has already decided, but on the surface he still looks very righteous and said, for the sake of the gods of death who came to the world from the world of corpses and souls, it would not be so miserable to sleep on the streets. I, the god of death in charge of this command, had to sacrifice my glory to take you to a good place to live and eat. A Sanjing Ryan, who doesn't understand him as a human being, is really excited. You have to know that many of their death gods live in miserable lives when they come to this world. You can see from the original book that they came to this world. No. Going to live at Kurosaki Ichigo's house is to live at his classmate's house, or to sleep on the street. Now they are certainly happy to hear Hirako Mako say that. Only Rukia was with her sister Feijun during the period of time in the soul world, and Feijun obviously confessed to her childhood. Although the process was a bit complicated, the two sisters finally recognized each other, and Feijun was tell her a lot. One of them included the deeds of the man in front of him, so she immediately looked at him with strange eyes after hearing what he said, which made him look a little embarrassed. Obviously, he also remembered that Rukia had a man named Hirako. Feijun's sister is one of Liu Changkong's wives. Then she should know more or less about her prestigious deeds. It's too bad, she may be revealed now, but Hirako Mako is fortunate that Rukia finally looked at herself with weird eyes and didn't say anything unnecessary. let him breathe a sigh of relief. Huh, Mako, why are you here? In an alien costume, Ju Nanbai also has brown skin, green eyes, blonde hair, a hot body, a high collar and a half-covered face. Usually the two girls of Haribel, who were carrying a large zanpakuto with a hollow body and a blade shaped like a circle, appeared not far away, but they used a black voice instead of a piercing gait. Shiro, what's the matter? I should have asked you this sentence. Right, why did you come here with Haribel? As soon as Hirako Mako said these words, something seemed to come to her mind. Nanbai is because of Lu Chengkong's arrangement. Therefore, she was not virtualized. Her talent in virtualizing should be said to be false, but Lu Chengkong knew that Ju Nanbai, an innocent little girl, was a super genius. It should be said that she was a god of death. It's a fake super genius. 553 Hallible's meatball is a pillow. The years go by like a shuttle, and the stubble of time is like a white horse passing through a gap. Half a month has passed in the blink of an eye, and the day of the decisive battle with Iskalan has quietly arrived. But BYD is still trapped in a weird space, thinking hard. The four of Bibi Dong, Qian Runshui, Tang San, and Ji Yushinfeng from the Spirit Hall were all ready to go. Go to the agreed location. The parting is imminent, and I don't know if it is life or death. Liena, from now on, the Spirit Hall will be completely handed over to you. If I can't come back, give this to Xiao Di. Bibi Dong took off a necklace from her neck and handed it to Liena. Teacher, you can definitely come back. You should give this to Xiao Di yourself. Liena burst into tears. Bibi Dong feigned anger. Do you still think I'm your teacher? If you still think I'm your teacher, then listen to the teacher. Yes, Lena knows. Teacher, please rest assured. Liena nodded and replied. Bibi Dong smiled and nodded, turned to look at the master, and said silently, Xiaogang, I'm sorry. Master Vivi smiled wryly and shook his head, I wish you a triumphant return. Bibi Dong smiled and nodded. Dad, Mom, you have to take care of your health. Tang San looked at his parents. His mother had just returned, and she had not yet enjoyed the joy of family reunion. She was about to go to the battlefield in person. This battle might never come back. Tang Hao is no longer the Tang Hao he used to be. His hair is straight and his eyes are filled with relief. Having a child like this, what is there to be unsatisfied with as a parent? Tang Hao patted Tang San's shoulder. Little San, you are a man now. As a father, I want to say to you, a man always has something on his shoulders. Tang San nodded firmly. My father's words will be remembered by Shaosan. Tang Hao raised his head and laughed loudly, but he didn't make a sound, and tears welled up in his eyes. As a father, Tang Hao was unqualified. Tang Hao wanted to make up for Tang San, but his son wanted to go to the battlefield in person, but as a father he couldn't go. His heart was sad. Sanner, come here to Mom. Lanyan's eyes were full of tears, and she waved to Tang San with a smile. Mom. Tang San walked over and stood in front of Lanyan, a head taller than Lanyan. Bluian only raised his hand and stroked Tang San's long golden hair, but couldn't say anything. The sound of Tang San held his mother in his arms, that belated maternal love. Tang San not only did not reject it, but cherished it even more. This is a great blessing for Tang Hao and Lanyan. Sanner, Mother will always protect you, Lanyan said with a smile. Well, Dad, Mom, take care. Tang San held the trident in his hand, adding a bit of heroic aura. Qian Runshui walked up to Qian Daoliu, Grandpa. Qian Daoliu stretched out his trembling hands and touched the long hair of his most beloved granddaughter. A 99-level peak titled Duluo would not tremble even when he was about to die. Qian Daoliu's trembling showed how worried and excited he was. Ren Shui, let's go. As the successor of the Seraph, protecting the continent is your rule. After Qian Daoliu finished speaking, he turned around and stopped looking at Qian Runshui. Qian Runshui nodded and replied firmly, Grandpa, granddaughter will definitely not let you down. Ji Yushinfeng looked at the four people in front of him, and said angrily, Hey, brother, I don't know if this battle is life or death. The boss's secret to picking up girls hasn't been given to me, but I don't know where to go. Alas. Gu Kamikaze's ridicule. Surprisingly no one responded and joked. Even the usually noisy Xia Palang had a dejected expression, and he didn't laugh with Ji Yuxinfang. Po Jun, Tian Xia, and Zi Xing all fell silent. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why do you look like this? Lao Su, I'm going to fight with others, not to die. As for this look, Ji Yuxinfang couldn't stand the atmosphere the most. The atmosphere made him very depressed. Mad, although we usually make fun of you, our relationship is the best in the Creation Club. How can we not worry if you go to fight that pervert now? Xia Palang said faintly. Ji Yuxinfang Bibi smiled bitterly. Little wolf, you know, I am most afraid of this kind of atmosphere, and you still gave me this. Tianxia Bibi shook his head and said, Mad, I actually took your purple gold and jade gourd. I didn't have money for the last drink, so I took it as a pawn. I'm leaving soon, I don't want you to have any regrets. Ji Yuxinfang nodded silently, then suddenly felt something, raised his head, a pair of small eyes stared round. What? My purple gold jade gourd, as you took it as a pawn. Tian Xia nodded calmly. Tian Xia, you stinky boy, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. You return my baby, return my baby. Woo woo, you return my baby. Ji Yuxinfang shouted to the end, but he couldn't even cry. Behind the heads of all the people present were covered with black lines, and they were completely speechless to this guy. Tang San kicked Ji Yuxinfang's butt angrily and said helplessly, Stop howling, it's time to go. Woo, return my baby. Ji Yuxinfang burst into tears and snot. Tang San and Qian Runshui shook their heads helplessly, slandering in their hearts. This guy is not only lustful, but also so greedy for money. Tang San, Qian Runshui, Bibi Dong, and Ji Yuxinfang stood side by side, watching the millions of people in Wuhan City farewell. They felt that they had a mission on their shoulders. Tang Chen swung his arm vigorously and shouted loudly, We will win this battle, come back in triumph. Immediately, 10,000 people said in unison, We will win this battle, and come back in triumph. Tang San clenched the trident in his hand, I will definitely not let everyone down. Brother, we will stick to it until the moment you arrive. 554 turning Ju Nanbai into a real virtual. Yeah, Kensai, Lujuro, and Hiyori, the three of them have been blurred, so we should be the ones who understand blurring the most, so old man Yamamoto can only let us come. What's more, the emptiness in the body of Kurosaki Ichigo is not comparable to the rubbish that Aizen got into the body of the three of them in Hyo. If other people come, even if they can make him emptiness, they can't stop it. I can only come, Hirako Mako said. Don't use your excuses for me. If you don't want to come, old man Yamamoto can let you come with your strength. It's not because you are used to enjoying the food in this world and you are not used to eating the food of the soul world. As for Quan Chi and the captains, it's fine when they are in the virtual world. Do you need you? Lu Chengkong moved his head, found a comfortable position in Halibal's arms, and then reclined his pillow again, and then he immediately dismantled the true face of Hirako Mako, and led Asanjing, who was eating a lot of food behind him. Renji and the others looked at Hirako Mako with contempt, and it turned out that the captain actually had this idea. Cough, let's talk about Shiro. Even Hirako Mako couldn't bear to change the topic in the face of the contemptuous eyes of the gods of death. Ah, what's the matter with me? Mako, you are just greedy. Ju Nanbai walked over with his head tilted, making Hirako Mako's face purple again. I'm not talking about this, forget it, am I really so unapproachable in front of beautiful girls? After all, I was also the number one in the list of handsome men at the True Spirit Academy back then, and now even my first love, Baisa to me. Hirako Mako said with tears streaming down her face with a heartbroken look, causing Asanjing Renji and others who had despised him just now to wonder if Captain Hirako was really that great. Yeah, I remember that at that time, Junzi was the same as Chengkong, but Chengkong was the first, but Junzi was the last one. Isn't Bai very smart? It's a pity that soon, with the innocent and lovely Ju Nanbai's words, Sanjing and others immediately no longer doubted. Compared with Hirako Mako, who has many previous records, they are more willing to believe in the innocent-looking Junan. White. Besides, I don't remember when I was your first love, but I've always been single, and I clearly remember Mako you always say that every time you see a beautiful girl. It's a pity that Ju Nanbai doesn't seem to want to let Pingzi Junzi go. As she kept saying her words, Pingzi Junzi's face became more and more ugly, and finally she had to shout, "Okay, bye, I admit that I was wrong." "No, you're more ruthless than Lisa." Haha. Zhang Kong laughed out loud when he saw Hirako Mako being so embarrassed by Ju Nanbai, and even Halibal, who felt a little strange from his chest and was a little twitchy and trembling around him, was attracted. Come here, a little nervous. Let's get back to the point. Bai, do you believe me? Lu Chengkong turned to look at Ju Nanbai and said. Compared to the big idiot of Junzi, of course I believe you will pull it. Ju Nanbai really held a grudge. Junzi has been through the vicissitudes of life now, but Ju Nanbai obviously still won't let go of the opportunity to attack him. Then let me tell you straight, I have been paying attention to you a long time ago. As soon as Lu Chengkong's words came out, he clearly felt that a jade hand was moving around his waist, which made Lu Chengkong look at Helibel in amazement. Obviously very surprised that Halibel seemed strange today. First, he took the initiative to hold himself, and then let his head rest on her precious soft round, and then squeeze the soft flesh around his waist like a jealous girl. It was really strange. HMPH, what are you looking at? Although Halibel's voice was still calm, it was obviously a bit higher than before, and she looked a little embarrassed. Look at the beauties, Lu Chengkong said as a matter of course, and sure enough, Halibel's little hand was immediately withdrawn. Although there was a high collar blocking it, Lu Chengkong believed that Halibel's mouth must be showing a little smile at this time. A woman like Libel would only be happy if she was praised for her beauty by someone she admired or cared about. As for other people you don't know or strangers, Halibel doesn't even bother with the smallpox dragon wind you say, and even cuts him. Lu Chengkong's series of strange actions today made Lu Chengkong understand something, but now it's obviously not the case. When saying this, Bai, maybe your potential talent in Death God can only be regarded as a genius that surpasses ordinary Death God. If it is only Death God, maybe your achievements in Death God in your whole life are at most an ordinary captain level, which should be you're at the limit of death. Lu Chengkong looked at Ju Nanbai seriously, and said in a serious tone, making Ju Nanbai, who was eating peony cake with a small mouth, also put on a serious expression and looked at Lu Chengkong, looking forward to his next words. On the contrary, I found that you are very talented in vain. Maybe you think it's absurd for me to say that. You are a god of death but you say that you are very talented in vain. Lu Chengkong laughed a little at himself when he said this. Laugh. No, if it was someone else, I would have kicked it earlier, but I believe in you. Ju Nanbai was silent for a while, then suddenly smiled lightly. Explicitly revealed. Why can't Bai treat me like this? I fooled Bai with a few words. Anyway, I'm also a handsome guy. God, this gap is too big. Mako Hirako looked up at the sky, looking very desolate, but all the gods of death present were attracted by Lu Chengkong's words, and they all ignored Mako Hirako, which made Mako Hirako even more sad. That's good. I want to ask you, Bai, do you want to become stronger? Lu Chengkong smiled happily. After all, being so trusted by a beautiful woman is also something to be happy about. At this time, Lu Chengkong's mood is peaceful. Zhishenzi's mood is completely in two extremes. Think about it, if you become stronger, you can protect Sister Lisa and the others, and you won't be calculated by Aizen and the others as before, and let the three of them, Xiaoriri, Idiot Kenshi, and Lu Juro. Ju Nanbai remembered the achievements of the three gods of death in their lifetimes were all limited, their faces collapsed, and their mouths pouted unhappily. That's good, Shiro, even if you make you virtual, you can also show your talents in virtual, but doing so is too one-sided, so I want to turn you into a virtual and cast away all the power of the god of death. Identity, soul, become a real virtual. Lu Chenkong's words made the roof of the building extremely quiet, and made a god of death into an empty space. If he said this when the 46th room was in power, he would definitely be sentenced to death. Only the man in front of him could say that. 555 Lu Chenkong's returning blade. After I become virtual, am I still white? Zhu Nanbai didn't directly refuse or agree, but instead asked such a question. As long as your heart is still white, then you will always be white. See. This sister named Halibal is Daxu, and after you become a void, before you reach vast order start to comprehend the broken face, you it may be just a figure, and can't see the appearance with a mask. But I believe that you are a super genius. When you begin to understand the face breaking or become vastord, your mask will start to fall, and the appearance will be exactly the same as you are now, but when you have surpassed vastord like you, Nilu, and become Skrito, then you will not see any void at all, and you will look the same as you are now, a god of death at all. Lu Chenkong told Zhu Nanbai all his views and thoughts, and let her choose, after all, whether it was from watching anime in his previous life or from the vision he had cultivated after living for so many years now. He can see that if Zhu Nanbai is false, he is definitely a super genius. With his full help, and the peculiar place of breaking the world, there is no need to worry about the length of time. Zhu Nanbai's strength can be used in a very short time. The time has soared to a very terrifying level. After all, staying in the outside world for 1 day is equivalent to staying in the broken realm for 2,000 days. The gap here is indelible. Okay, I must avenge Xiaoriri and the others. As long as I have this strength, what if I become a virtual person, as long as I am still white? Although Zhu Nanbai's words were very naive, her back seemed to be magnified countless times in an instant, and even a little throbbing and a trace of tears flashed in the depths of Hirako Mako's eyes. Hirako Mako's fist has been clenched quietly. Aizen, you wait for me, in the near future I will give you back 10 times their pain in Hyo. Don't worry, you will always be Zhu Nanbai. Believe me, there is no difference between being a ghost and a god of death, because I can be considered a ghost now. Lu Chenkong stood up, pulled out the snow drink mad knife and stuck it on the roof, and shouted under the astonished and disbelieving eyes of the gods of death except Hirako Mako and Halibal, return to blade, come down. Kirin Emperor. Bang. Lu Chenkong's body was immediately wrapped in a silver-colored spiritual pressure, causing the color-changing spiritual pressure to shoot straight into the sky and the earth, as if to dispel the dark night in Kuzucho. Lim Chao and the surprised Kurosaki Ichigo only felt a pressure like the power of heaven falling on him, and the whole person was directly crushed to the ground without being able to resist. It can be said that as long as people in Kuzucho have Reiatsu, they will be crushed to the ground by this sudden Reiatsu. Except for Kurosaki Isshin and Ishida Ryujin who are recovering the power of death, it is very difficult to be pressed. Almost couldn't breathe, and basically fell down except for lying down. As for the gods of death, such as Hitsugaya Toshiro, who were closest to Lu Chenkong, they were blown away by the gust of wind driven by this spiritual pressure. Fortunately, Hirako Mako acted upon the opportunity and immediately raised his spiritual pressure to the extreme to block the god of death behind him. With Shengliu Chenkong's intentional control, they will be fine. But even so, they all turned pale with fright. At such a close distance, although it was only for a moment, they most deeply felt how terrifying the spiritual pressure that seemed to destroy the world in Lu Chenkong's body. Palpitations. When the light dissipated, they stared at Lu Chenkong with wide eyes, not so much Zhu Nanbai. After all, she was also preparing to become a phantom. Of course she wanted to see the so-called return blade of Po Mian. They all gasped, including Mako Hirako. The target was a humanoid creature, but when they saw it clearly, they couldn't find any words to describe him. The whole body is covered with inky silver scales, and it looks like a streamlined body full of speed and explosive power. The original human head has become a unicorn-like and a bit like a dragon's head. Generally speaking, it is more inclined to the unicorn, making Lu Chenkong's whole person look fundamental. It is a human-shaped unicorn, and it is also the emperor among the unicorns, the human-shaped ink unicorn. Before I broke the limits of death and emptiness, I was the body of death, and I broke the limit with the body of death, and after breaking the limit, I did not change the essence of my death. Therefore, I can use all the abilities of the virtual, including the return blade, instead of the so-called virtualization like Eisen uses the collapsing jade. The virtuality is only the ability to break the minimum degree of external force, and it can also be said to be the initial level of the return blade. Even if it is completely blurred, it just evolves the power of blurring to the extreme. But it is still not as good as the real return blade, nor is it a return blade. It can only be called a virtual return, and it can only be regarded as a fake return blade, not a real return blade. By the way, only by truly breaking the limits of death and emptiness, changing the structure of the soul and sublimating the soul, can it have the ability. After Lu Chengkong returned to the blade, not only did his appearance change, but his voice also changed, giving people a very heavy and somewhat metallic sound. Then I've become a virtual and different from you, Zhu Nanbai asked in confusion. It can be said that, because my essence can still be regarded as the god of death, but the soul has reached a perfect state, or it can be said that it has reached the balance point of the emptiness and the god of death, just like the yin and yang fish of Tai Chi, it is in the center and can be used on both sides. The power of the god of death, that is to say, the power of the god of death and the void can be used, but the shape of the return blade is different. In fact, there is not much difference between Shu breaking the limit and death breaking the limit, but the starting point is different, and the form after returning to the blade is different. Take Nailu as an example. She can be said to grow up at almost the highest level. The void has broken the limit of the void and the god of death, so the earth looks no different from humans or the god of death. She was invastored. At most, if she returns to the blade now, the Zanpakuto has changed, turning into a spear-like weapon, the Huiji shotgun, with an increase in strength or some strange and powerful abilities. Her appearance and shape will not change in the slightest as it is now. She still looks exactly the same as the god of death and human beings. At most, it is the god of death with a green gun. At the same time, she can also learn to use the god of death, Shikai and Bankai. Even all the abilities of Ghost, Kendo, etc. 556 Grimjiao vs Kurosaki Ichigo. Lu Chengkong pondered for a while, and recalled how Nelilu used the return blade after she became Skrito, and then sorted out the language and said it, but when it came to the end, Hitsugaya Toshiro and the other gods of death had changed a lot. Skrito is so terrifying. Not only after returning to the blade is the same as Shikai and Bankai, the god of death, the shape and appearance will not change in any way, and even can learn the abilities of Bankai, the god of death, and Shikai's Kendo ghost way, etc. It's really terrible, and this kind of Skrito, who only appeared in the legend, actually has one in the soul realm, and he is still with the man in front of him. And I, as you can see now, can still use the abilities of Shikai, Bankai, Ghost, etc., the god of death, and I can also use all the abilities of the virtual, Steel Skin, Ringing, Returning Blade, Virtual Flash, King Fake Flashes, etc. The only difference is that Nailu's return blade has not changed in the slightest, but after I return to the blade as a god of death, I will look like a humanoid, as if it has become a real virtual, and is no longer a god of death. In fact, it is to let the god of death, who breaks the limit, have the complete power of emptiness, of course, including the appearance of emptiness. Other death gods who have broken the limit will also use the return blade, but they have different appearances and types of humanoid shapes. By the way, if you want to see the appearance of different Reaper returning blades after breaking the limit, you can let Mako return to the blade to show you. 2 months ago, Mako also broke the limits of Reaper and Void and mastered the ability of returning to the blade. After Lu Chengkong finished speaking, the silver-colored light flashed across his body, and it had returned to its original state. At the same time, he did not forget to pull Hirako Mako into the water. It's strange, after hearing what Master Chengkong said, the previous members of Team Zero should also have the ability to return to the blade, which means that he can become stronger after Bankai. Then why doesn't he use the blade? The death god who has reached the limit also has to learn how to use the returning blade. Can he not learn it? Asanjing Renji suddenly remembered that Kuchiki Jinling from a few months ago also seemed to be the god of death who broke the limit, so he should also return to the blade. In that case, why not even use the return blade? Yi Yi has the title of an assassin under the sun. Do you think he still has the chance to return to the sword after Yi Yi's assassination? If he immediately added Bankai and returned to the sword at the beginning, then Yi Yi at that time was nothing more than that. The strength of the peak of the death god can only injure him at most, and cannot kill him at all. It's a pity that he was lucky when he saw that Yi Yi was only at the peak of death god's strength, underestimated the enemy, and was assassinated by Yi Yi in the end. At that time, even if he wanted to use the return blade, it was too late, and the dead could still use the return blade. Lu Chengkong was right. At the moment before his death, what Kuchiki Jinling regretted most was that he underestimated Yi Yi and didn't use the returning blade immediately when using Bankai, otherwise he would never die. So it is. Asanjing Renji thought of Sifun Yuan Yaiki's ability to suddenly disappear his body and mind, as well as the ability to double his attacks, an entity clone that possesses all the abilities of the main body just like the main body. Think about him. Feel the scalp tingling. Especially Asanjing Renji, he can be sure that Sifun Yuan Yaiki definitely has more than so many strengths, and must hide more powerful Bankai abilities. After all, the Zanpakuto that claims to violate the realm of the gods is no joke. There are so many abilities to enhance strength, as well as the best and terrifying prison blood demon. Then Yi Yi should also have an equivalent or stronger trick, but unfortunately, under Yi Yi's assassination, Kuchiki Jinling didn't use Yi Yi's terrifying trick similar to Zengmu Jonpachi's prison blood demon temple. After being forced out, he was already dead. After all, he still looked down on the enemy and looked down on the enemy, and looked down on the trouble he caused. What happened just now? Grimjow stood up, a trace of horror flashed in his eyes. Only his own king could have such a surging and endless spiritual pressure, but he had a deep memory of this kind of spiritual pressure. How could it be forgotten? Forget it. I cleaned up the Kurosaki Ichigo in front of him and went over to take a look. This is the god of death with high potential that Wulkiora said. But why did I only see scruples and hesitations in his eyes? There is fear, a waste. Grimjow glanced at the Kurosaki Ichigo in front of him with disdain, but he did not know that Kurosaki Ichigo's fear, hesitation, and scruples were due to the emptiness in his body. But in any case, Kurosaki Ichigo was indeed realized now. All foolish enough. A strong person must have a heart to move forward bravely and never be afraid to retreat. Now Kurosaki Ichigo is hesitant because he is afraid of the emptiness in his body that will lead him out. The surface is really far off. You're disappointing me, are you that much? If that's the case, you're going to die. Grimjow's eyes flashed with a cold light, his feet squeaked, and his figure came to the black like an agile leopard. In front of Sake Ichigo, a punch hit his stomach. At the same time, the 5 fingers spread out, and a dazzling red sphere condensed and formed. With a bang, the red sphere in Grimjow's hand immediately shot a ray-like flash, which blasted Kurosaki Ichigo out and blew up more than a dozen consecutively. The building just stopped. Cut, it's boring. Grimjow was quite confident in his flickering. With the strength that Ichigo Kurosaki showed just now, even if it didn't kill him, he couldn't get up again. Such an opponent is not worth killing even if he survives. He is not interested in an opponent who has fear in his eyes and shrinks. Crescent Moon Chong. Kurosaki Ichigo, who had been beaten all the time, felt the danger of his life at the moment Grimyours let out a phantom flash, and no longer dared to hold back. A black crescent moon was released between the crises. Although it can't cancel out the phantom that is now a primary Vastord, instead of just a phantom flash of Grimjow catalyzed by a self-destruction jade that only has Ichuka's broken face, it will also use most of its power. Barely offset. It seemed that he was kicked far away, and he was very embarrassed. In fact, he didn't suffer too much damage. Seeing Grimjow turn and leave, his contemptuous eyes stabbed Kurosaki Ichigo's heart, and made him who was already in a very bad mood. he broke out immediately, and a black crescent moon that was even bigger than before came out of the sky. I didn't expect you to be able to unleash such a slash, the power is good. Unfortunately, the current Grimjow is not comparable to him in the original book. He was able to control it perfectly and bring his own strength into full play. 557 Crushing Crescent Moon with Bare Hands. It is simply not comparable to Achuka's, who was catalyzed by Bengyu in the original book. At least Grimjow in the original book could not perfectly control the power of breaking the face brought to him by Bengyu, and his strength in the original work was far from impossible. Compared to him now is Vastord. After all, how big the gap between Vastord and Achuka's is depends on the original work of Ichigo Kurosaki and Grimjow, as well as the respective fighting conditions of Ulquiorra. In the face of Ulquiorra, Kurosaki Ichigo had to use Bankai and Blurry to be able to barely match Ulquiorra's normal state with no return blade. Just the return blade of the first paragraph, Ulquiorra, can easily kill Kurosaki Ichigo, but unfortunately Ulquiorra does not know what is going crazy. It may be the protagonist's halo, or it may be Ulquiorra hadn't read the symbol of his own psychic power, so he was affected. In addition, he wanted Kurosaki Ichigo to feel what it means to be desperate, and he actually dragged the battle for so long, used the second stage return blade and used so many planes, and finally brought out the power of Shiro Ichigo, and it became a complete blur. Turning his head Ichigo was finally defeated with the support of Shiro Ichigo far surpassing Ichigo Kurosaki, so at the beginning of the battle, he was determined to kill the enemy, rather than having so many planes. Of course, the best thing to do is to deal with your own hidden dangers before fighting. Don't be affected by the spiritual symbol of your own strength like Ulquiorra, and don't be the same as Kurosaki Ichigo. But this level of slashing is useless to me. If I was just Achuka's, I might leave a scar on my body. It's a pity that I am the real me now, in the midst of life and death. The hard-fought Vastord. As soon as Grimjow uttered the last word, he stuck out his right hand, ignoring the black crescent moon, and grabbed it directly, pinching it with force, and actually crushed Kurosaki Ichigo's crescent moon. I actually crushed the crescent moon with my bare hands. Kurosaki Ichigo's pupils shrank suddenly, and he said in disbelief. Such an attack can still work on Achuka's words of no return, but to me, it's a joke. Grimjow smiled disdainfully, as if mocking Kurosaki Ichigo's whimsical, too high look at yourself. While speaking, the right hand rises again, and the virtual flash condenses again. In the original book, Rukia Kuchiki came to help him, but now because Ranju Matsumoto is gone, Rukia took the place of Ranju Matsumoto. Masa and one of Grimjow's men were fighting and wanted to come and help, can't do it. One household, you are still such a waste, leave your body to me, and he will help me clean it up for you. Bai Yihu's voice resounded in Hei Yihu's heart again, and at the time of life and death he would not, I believe Kurosaki Ichigo will not let go. It's a pity that this time, Ichigo Bai underestimated the firmness in Ichigo Kurosaki's heart, and he refused to give his body to himself even though he died. He is still very confident in his own strength. Even if he can't defeat Liu Changkong, his rank is a genuine Vastod. With the power of Zanyu, Bankai's words would defeat Jie Li in his opinion. Nyo is definitely not a problem. Grimjow, right, give me a face, spare his life, I promised a friend to teach him something, at least I can't let me die before I teach him, otherwise I won't be able to explain it to him. After I learn it, I won't care whether he lives or dies. Hirako Meiko suddenly appeared beside Kurosaki Ichigo and knocked Kurosaki Ichigo stunned with a punch. In his body, Shiro Ichigo had begun to constantly want to come out with Kurosaki Ichigo. After all, Ichigo didn't want to die. Of course I figured it out. It's you. Grimjow stayed in Liu Changkong's palace for a while, and met Hirako Meiko a few times, but at that time Grimjow was just a leopard. Fighting Stark in the basement, even if he came out, he didn't talk much, so it was normal that Hirako Meiko didn't recognize him very much. For the sake of your being Wang's friend, I'll let him go this time, and this bastard isn't really worth killing me. Grimjow does not look at the monk's face but also let the Buddha's face. He also knows the power of the Hiriko Mako in front of him. Since the other party did not arrogantly order him, he treats him as a person of the same level, which can be regarded as giving him face. He has a feeling that the god of death in front of him is even more powerful than Aizen, and he is not someone who doesn't know what to do. If the other party gives him face, he also wants to give face, and this god of death makes his king's friend, so he finally chose to accept it. With a hand, he turned to Lu Chengkong's location with a bang. You're right, he's really worthless now, whether it's strength or mind, he's even afraid of the emptiness in his body. Hee. Ichigo Kurosaki is very grateful to Old Man Yamamoto and Kazuki Urahara. This time it's you, your luck is good, but luck always runs out. If they hadn't asked me to help, I wouldn't be bothered to care about you. Rather than they value your potential, I value the emptiness in your body more. He is the real one. The strong, whether it is strength or mind. Quote. Hiriko Mako directly picked up Ichigo Kurosaki and disappeared in place, obviously taking him to learn to blur, and then left immediately, but he didn't have much time to waste here. It would be better to enjoy food and ice wine. No, not to mention that Kingzi Junzi was really badly taught by Lu Chengkong, he enjoyed it too much. But thinking about it, the reason for Lu Chengkong to become stronger is very simple. Do what he wants to do, protect the people he wants to protect, and enjoy life better. This is the reason, but this reason is already the most sufficient. See my king. On the other side, Grimjow had already used the ring switch to come to Lu Chengkong, ignoring Hitsugaya Tushiro's surprised eyes, and actually showed an impeccable etiquette to Lu Chengkong, except for Sun. In addition to Toshiro Fanya, Renji Asani and a group of gods of death have entered to fight against Grimjow's men. If Aizen and Ulki or Lassifa were there, they would definitely suspect that there is something wrong with their eyes. You must know that whether it is the original Grimjow or the current Grimjow, they are rebellious, and they will never come out like this. Respect of the heart to anyone. Even if it is only Ichuka's in the original work, he has never been respectful or convinced in the face of Aizen, let alone such a courtesy. Only Lu Chengkong has the qualification and honor to let her Jie Li. Myo did so. The 30th blade. Hitsugaya Toshiro clearly noticed the number on Grimjow's back, and his pupils shrank involuntarily, but the shock in his heart was like a tumbling river, and the waves were like surging water, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. What kind of death god Lu Chengkong is, and how many secrets he hides behind his back, it's terrifying. The more he knows, the more difficult it is to raise the idea of confrontation. 558 Zhu Nanbai's coquetry is hard to resist. Grimjow, your subordinates are dying, do you need them to survive? Lu Chengkong asked Grimjow very casually after throwing a bottle of ice. No, I told them before that if you use Bengyu, there will be a bad ending in the future. Don't blame me, it's a pity that they can't stand the temptation of power and use Bengyu. Sooner or later, such a broken face will end. The only way to go is to fall. Even if I save them this time, they won't live long. If they insist on not using Bengyu, I will save them. I don't need it now. I have given them the opportunity. No wonder people can't grasp it. Grimjow shook his head and said, it seems unfeeling, but it is normal for Suyu to grow up in a place like the virtual circle. After all, many ghosts are unlucky enough to have no chance. Now Grimjow has given his subordinates a big opportunity and a test. If he can't stand the temptation of power, then he can't blame him. In the virtual circle, Grimjow and Ulquioricifer are in the virtual circle. It's already kind. I'm glad you can make such a decision. If you choose, you can't stand the temptation of power, and lose the broken face under the abyss of power. I have to re-examine you, Toshiro, they will hand it over to you. Now, if any of the gods of death can't support it, you can go and support it. Mako and I have things to do. Lu Chengkong stood up, took Grimjow, and followed Halibal and Zhu Nanbai slowly from left to right. Go down. Please call me Captain Hitsugaya. As for you, I'll know what to do if you don't tell me. Hitsugaya Toshiro Marine was determined to correct Lu Chengkong's mistake first, but Lu Chengkong didn't care. He waved his hand and disappeared from Hitsugaya Toshiro's sight. The veins on Hitsugaya Toshiro's forehead burst out, but there was nothing he could do. He could only feel the changes of spiritual pressure in the four directions in a dejected manner, and he could rescue him at any time according to the actual situation. Did you see it, Shiro? This is just the beginning of Vastord, who has just begun to comprehend the shattered Daxu of himself. When you reach the stage of Vastord, you are similar to what he looks like now. Lu Chengkong directly twisted Grimjow over, making Ju Nanbai's innocent little eyes widen to see clearly up and down. Only Lu Chengkong treated Grimjow like this, and Grimjow did not get angry at all. Break out. Well, that's right, I'm only a beginner, and I just started to understand that the face-breaking transformation is so close to the human form. If this is the case, Xiaobai can rest assured. Now that there are so many real-life examples, Ju Nanbai is completely relieved. She doesn't want to become a monster like Virtual and can't change back to her original shape. In that case, she may have to think about it, since she can change back to Harmony after she becomes stronger. The same human form now, and Lu Chengkong also said that he is very talented in the Virtual, so there should be no problem. This time, I will help you transform and completely transform the soul that belongs to the god of death into a virtual soul. From now on, you will no longer walk the path of the god of death, but the path of virtuality. As long as you reach the peak of virtuality, you can use the control glove again to perfect your phantom soul, break the limit of death and phantom, and become an existence like Nailu. At that time, after you have broken the limit by entering the void, it will definitely be many times faster to learn the ability of the god of death than you are now practicing with the god of death. No matter what happens, you must stay awake and not resist in the slightest, understand? That's right, the soul reorganization and soul structure that breaks the limit can only be used after reaching the peak of death or emptiness, but to transform a soul of death, human, bavint, emptiness, quencher, etc. To completely transform them into other races can be transformed as long as the transformed person is in an absolutely awake state, without being deceived by abilities such as Jinghuashuiyu, and without any resistance in their hearts. I see, but then you want to treat me to a peony cake, and it's still the kind sprinkled with soy flour. Ju Nanbai nodded with a smile, his lively and innocent look can really compete with Bachanliu. Lu Chengkong was speechless. He didn't expect that Ju Nanbai's head could still think of these things at this time. Aren't you going to invite me to eat it? Wow, I want to eat peony cake. I want to eat the one sprinkled with soy flour. I want to eat it. I told Sister Lisa that you bullied me. When Ju Nanbai saw that Lu Chengkong didn't speak, he thought he wouldn't agree to him. Suddenly, in addition to the stunt of the 6-car boxing, he lay on the ground and acted coquettishly, so that the speechless Lu Chengkong quickly nodded and agreed. Ju Nanbai Kai stood up as if nothing had happened. The speed of change really made people think that her performance just now was just an illusion. Bye, I finally know why Quan Chi was so angry with you that he was in the 4th division many times. Lu Chengkong said with the same feeling. I'm not as good as you said. It's a pity that Lu Chengkong still underestimates Ju Nanbai. He really doesn't know whether she is naive and cute, or she is too naive. At that time, he didn't even know whether he was complimenting her or not. Okay, the flowers are over here, let's get started. Lu Chengkong motioned Ju Nanbai to lie down. Maybe the peony cake played a role. This time Ju Nanbai was very good, and lay on the bed obediently, staring at him. A pair of clear water eyes looked at Lu Chengkong. If someone with a crooked mind faces the gaze of Ju Nanbai's eyes, he may not help but retreat in shame. Soul, loose, Lu Chengkong thought to himself, with his current strength, combined with the spirit control gloves, transforming Ju Nanbai is simply effortless. For the next 3 days, Lu Chengkong has been searching for Ju Nanbai's best friend. The soul structure that was suitable for becoming virtual was finally found on the night of the 3rd day, and at the same time, the transformation of virtual was completed. With a flash of light, Ju Nanbai's appearance after becoming virtual was also revealed. No, it's too coincidental. Lu Chengkong looked at Ju Nanbai's appearance at this time, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help twitching. At this time, when Ju Nanbai turned into a virtual appearance, it was exactly the same as the original work after the virtual appearance. The appearance of the steel skin on her body is exactly the same as the strange clothes she wore before, the clothes in the original book Betrayal of Souls and Aizen wore, as if her steel skin is based on the style of her favorite dress. Turned into the same. Lu Chengkong was speechless the most. When the corners of his mouth cramped, Zhu Nanbai's appearance at this time was a bit out of the essence of the virtual mask. With a heart-shaped outfit, the eyes were larger, and there were stripes on the hair, a bit like Quan Chi. With the mask of masquerade. At this time, her appearance after she has completely turned into a virtual reality is exactly the same as the virtual appearance of her original book and the Aizen wore, except that the mask of the mask has become a virtual mask, and the clothes have turned into steel skin. It is simply carved out of the same shape, it is simply a cute version of the alien, or it can be said to be a girl version of masked Superman. 559 Killing. Swallowing the constant battle. Bye, look at yourself. Lu Chengkong couldn't stand it anymore. He was worried that he would burst into laughter if he looked at it any longer, so he took out a mirror and let Zhu Nanbai see it for himself. Look. Wow, is this what I looked like when I became a virtual? It's not as ugly as I imagined, so handsome and cute. Zhu Nanbai's voice did not change in the slightest, but when her words came out, not only Lu Chengkong, but also the ruthless Grimjiao and the expressionless Hannibal had cramps in the corners of their eyes, and Vivi shook her body, obviously she is holding back her smile. Zhu Nanbai's aesthetics are not ordinary and unique, and not everyone can keep up with her aesthetic sense. Bye, I won't say more nonsense, just prepare, I will take you and Hannibal, Grimjiao and Nilu in the Soul Realm to break the realm. Aizen at least has it will take 4 months to attack the world, and the world of souls, so I'm going to make you a Vastord or even a Skrito before the war begins. Lu Chengkong's words made Hannibal and Grimjiao take a deep breath when they heard the words. Skritona is the legendary Great Void. They have only seen a big virtual reach this level, and that is Nelly Lu. Now that Lu Chengkong has put down such a rhetoric, he wants to make Zhu Nanbai, who has just become a virtual, advance to the level of Skrito within 4 months. This is really shocking, but with the explanation behind Lu Chengkong, they also feel that maybe it is possible to do it. I have already sensed from you the hidden energy that you are hiding in order to slowly wake up. Don't underestimate these 4 months. 1 day in this dimension, in the boundary realm is equal to 2,000 days in the past. That is to say, as long as the 1 month we spend in the outside world is equal to 2,000 months, which means at least 160 years have passed. In the boundary of at least 160 years, your daily life it is the battle. I will let Shanghai, Lu Julong and the others go to the virtual circle to bring all the powerful virtuals, including some of the broken faces made by Aizen in the virtual night palace. Day and night battles, continuous battles, devoured more than 160 years. In the frantic battles and slaughter, between life and death, your potential will be pushed to the limit, while Grimjiao, Nilu and Hannibal and you 3 virtual talents will continue to fight for at least 160 years. After becoming Vastord, simply swallowing has no effect, unless swallowing the same level or stronger virtual talents it works. The outbreak between life and death is your way to advance, and your opponent is not someone else, it is me. You must fight with me with the determination to kill me, otherwise you will die. Quote. When Lu Chengkong said the last word of death, a cold aura erupted from his body, which made the 3 people in front of him feel a chill, and they all clearly felt the determination in Lu Chengkong's words. I see. Seeing Lu Chengkong's appearance at this time, Zhu Nanbai didn't dare to make trouble, and nodded very well behaved, but she didn't regret it at all, didn't care, instead, she was a little excited. He had completely believed what Lu Chengkong had said to himself earlier that she was a super genius. Because she found that not only did she have no discomfort after becoming a virtual, but she seemed to have awakened potential power, and there was a desire to fight and explode, which was completely different from when she was in the body of the god of death before. A feeling of depression, like being blocked. 3 days later, Nelly Lu also came to fight with Lu Chengkong, and it was obvious from the expression on his face that he knew what kind of situation he was about to face. Let's go. Lu Chengkong opened the Lahaicheng directly and came to the boundary realm, but what surprised Zhu Nanbai was that there were already all kinds of big voids standing in front of him, including Kilian and Yacho. Cass, even Vastord had too, and one of them actually began to realize the death of himself, and his strength should be on the same level as Grimjiao. So many, are you ready early in the morning? Hannibal was also surprised by Vivi, then turned her head and said to Lu Chengkong. If you listen carefully, you will hear Hannibal talking to Lu Chengkong. When talking, I got a lot closer, and there was no sense of distance that was vague before. Yes, I have been preparing since I saw Bai's talent. I know that Bai will definitely agree. Even if she doesn't agree, it doesn't matter. When the time comes, I will just let it go. Lu Chengkong shrugged indifferently. It turned out that he had been secretly capturing Daxu in the virtual circle a long time ago, and later sealed them all in a certain corner of the virtual circle. For the past 3 days, he just let the Deadwood Shanghai and the others go to the virtual circle. Sealing these imaginary places by oneself will bring them all to break the boundary. Anyway, the virtual circle is surprisingly large. The hidden Yachukas are as many as the sands of the Ganges River, and there are also a lot of Vastodes. I know that Lu Chengkong suspects that there may be a lot of Skrito. As far as the voids in front of them are, they are only a drop in the bucket of all the power of the void circle. It is a pity that the power of the void circle is too scattered. If all of them are combined together as organized and disciplined as the zombie soul world, the zombie soul world may be completely destroyed by the void circle. Killed. But maybe this is the so-called fairness of heaven. The overall power of the virtual circle is stronger than that of the corpse soul world, but it is also destined that they will govern themselves, kill themselves, and evolve their own characteristics. It's just on the surface of the virtual circle. It's really hard to help you. Kuchiki Shanghai walked over and smiled and tapped Lu Chengkong on the chest. Hee, is it a lot of work for those who are capable? That guy Mako was asked by Kazuki Urahara and Old Man Yamamoto to teach him to teach Kurosaki Ichigo in this world. Both Ranju and Yaiki are cultivating and watching Bachinliu. They only went to break the world before. Not long after, even if you come again, it will be of no use. Instead, it will be counterproductive to push too hard. You are the only person with the most free time and the most strength. Lu Chengkong, hey Isho, looks a bit like an ancient profiteer and landowner squeezing labor. That smug smile made the smile on the corner of Kuimu Shanghai's mouth tickled up. Only chatting with Lu Chengkong, or bragging about it together, can this be done. A relaxed, stress-free, unprofitable feeling. I'm leaving first. When the war begins, I'll be going to the world again, so let's go back and enjoy it. After chatting a few words with Kuchiki Shanghai and Lu Chengxian, they also knew that Lu Chengkong had important things to do, so he brought it with him when he was very comfortable. With Fengchao Luzhiro and others, they left the Broken Realm and returned to the Soul Realm. 560 Hallibal's unique first time. Grimjiao, in the first 3 months, take a good look at the symbol of spiritual power in your body. Nilu, you are optimistic about Bai. Unless you are on the verge of death, you should never take action. Lu Chengkong was speaking peacefully this time. The tone was completely different, and the unquestionable power made it hard to think of rejection. Hannibal, come with me. Lu Chengkong was very serious on the surface, but he was actually laughing in his heart. After waiting for so long, he thought it would be very difficult to overthrow even the current Lu Chengkong. Harabel, I didn't expect her to be delivered directly to the door. Here's the thing, on the night that Nelly Lu advanced to become Skrito, when Lu Chengkong and Landau were doing the things they loved to do the most intensely, Harabel actually broke in, even though she saw the scene made Hannibal a little embarrassed, and even wanted to leave directly. However, the persistence in her heart made her calm down in a very short time. She asked Lu Chengkong if there was any way for her to catch up with Nelly L, why she was so eager to chase Nelly L, as long as she was not an idiot. She's actually really similar to Broken Bee in this regard. One is to sacrifice everything that he can sacrifice for Yi Yi, standing behind her silently to protect her, and the other is to sacrifice everything that he can sacrifice for Nelly Alu, also standing silently behind to protect her. She never reciprocates anything, all she wants is to be able to catch up with Nellie L and help her when she needs it, that's all. Originally, Lu Chengkong had nothing to do. If it was forcibly promoted, there were many ways to go directly to grab Aizen's Bengyu, but there was no side effect, and it was indeed difficult to narrow the gap with Nellie Lu. After all, after entering the Skrido level Dashui, Nellie L's strength has increased dramatically, and even Lu Chengkong was surprised by the terrifying speed of improvement. Just when Lu Chengkong was at a loss, Landau came up with a solution, a way to make Lu Chengkong overjoyed and Hannibal embarrassed, that is to do things through sex, especially in the first. It's time to pour Lu Chengkong's hidden spirit liquid into Hannibal's body and combine with her virgin Yuanian. The general process is like this, but in fact it's not that simple. There is nothing in the world for nothing. This is not as simple as simply pouring in liquid, but at the same time pouring in liquid, controlling one's own spiritual pressure and turning it into a spiritual child into the liquid into Hannibal's body Myaning. It can be said that this is completely it is to sacrifice Lu Chengkong's spiritual pressure. The transformation is absorbed by Hannibal, this kind of spiritual child with no resistance, extremely pure and high quality. This method is similar to the double cultivation in the comprehension novel. The first effect is the biggest, and the subsequent effect increases with the number of times. Less than once. In this world where strength is respected, weakening one's own strength to enhance the strength of others, even if it is a close relationship between the god of death or the virtual, few people can do it. When Haribel learned about this method, he was shy for the first time. Other than that, it is rejected. Because she knew the importance of Lu Chengkong's enormous power. She knew very well what kind of situation Lu Chengkong would face in the future. Weakening Lu Chengkong would be the same as hanging Shaxingdong. She couldn't do it, in her opinion, even if she couldn't keep up with Nelieru. As long as Lu Chengkong is still there, Nelieru won't have much problem, so she refused without hesitation. What surprised and shy of her was that Lu Chengkong actually agreed without the slightest hesitation or reluctance. In fact, only Landau knew why Lu Chengkong was so righteous and awe-inspiring, without the slightest reluctance or heartache. Because of Lu Chengkong's strength, Reiatsu has surpassed Hannibal too much, and it is not at the level that the current Hannibal can understand. Therefore, as long as Lu Chengkong's spiritual pressure is a little bit, Hannibal can reach the pinnacle of Vastord in spiritual pressure, that is, the pinnacle of emptiness, and in the more than 160 years of breaking the world, the little bit lost. Not only can the spiritual pressure be completely recovered, but it can also be better than before. A little bit of spiritual pressure can be exchanged for a beauty that he has long admired. Lu Chengkong is of course not a loser in this kind of business. In his opinion, simply possessing a powerful spiritual pressure cannot represent a god of death or the overall strength of the void. Pressure can only be regarded as the source of motivation. If you don't have enough strength, it's not useless to talk about the source of all the power, so it's not enough for Reiatsu to reach the peak of Reaper and Void category. However, there are still advantages. You can see from Kurosaki Ichigo that it is the spiritual pressure of Kurosaki Masaki's peak of death that is sealed in his body, so that he can continue to break out and break through in such a short period of time. So as long as the spiritual pressure reaches the peak of the virtual, and then in the more than 160 of the broken world, he continued to fight against Lu Chengkong. Constantly seeking breakthroughs between life and death, even if you can't catch up with Nellie L, you can completely shorten the distance between the two, so that Hannibal can reach Skrido in a much shorter time. Belle didn't even know. Her heart is very chaotic now, some are angry, some are shy, some are hesitant, some are overwhelmed, and a little bit because Lu Chengkong can give such a big move for herself. Hannibal, are you ready? To be honest, I've been thinking about how to get you. I don't want to use force or force you to make you feel unwilling. I didn't expect you to be delivered to the door when I was very distressed. In fact, let alone this little bit of spiritual pressure, even sacrificing a quarter is nothing. As long as you can bear it, for me now, the simple accumulation of spiritual pressure has actually become very simple. The spiritual pressure improvement of my soul has not been of much help to my strength. The way of my cultivation now is the perception and sublimation of my soul. Every time my soul is enlightened and sublimated, my overall strength can skyrocket. Among them, spiritual pressure is also included. Compared to the accumulation of spiritual pressure, it seems that it has no great effect now. Quote, Lu Chengkong came to this unoccupied place and cast a barrier that was easy to destroy internally, extremely difficult to destroy externally, and couldn't see anything inside from the outside, and then said to Halibal, So I seem to have paid a lot, but it's just a drop in the bucket. I'm not as great as you think. I'm actually a very selfish person. What I want to do is to do what I want to do, protect myself and want to protect people, enjoy life better. Quote,